Chapter 853. That's right. Not to mention the value of this jade hall. Just by looking at the hall's colorful jade and beautiful flowers, it would make people greedy. Just looking at it and not having the ability to take it for themselves. How could Zhang Xiaohua not sigh? After a long while, Zhang Xiaohua shook her head and smiled. There is a kind of liking called letting go. Maybe if I don't take it away, it will leave a good impression in my heart. Immediately she said in distress, but I really want to take it away. What's the matter with the fragrant religion? Why would they put such a thing here? Don't they know? Thinking of this, Zhang Xiaohua unconsciously became vigilant. There was no one here, but it didn't mean that no one on Lingering Fragrance Peak knew. It also didn't mean that no one would come. She had better be careful. It was only at this moment that Zhang Xiaohua withdrew her attention from the hall carved with jade, and carefully observed the furnishings in the hall. The furnishings in the hall were very simple. In addition to the stone table, stone chairs, stone stools and other things that Zhang Xiaohua had seen before, there were some silk and other things in the hall. Directly above the hall, there were 3 portraits. Zhang Xiaohua slowly walked forward and carefully looked at the 3 portraits. In the middle of the 3 portraits, there was a woman in green. Her figure was graceful and her face was covered with a veil. She held a long whip in her hand and stood beside a small bridge. Her eyes were looking at the gurgling water under the small bridge, as if she was thinking about something. On the left was a portrait of a man in embroidered clothes. He held a long knife in his hand and rode on a horse. It seemed that the wind was blowing and the man's clothes were flying, showing his heroic spirit. On the right was another portrait, but it was a scholar in white. A sword hung at his waist, and a folding fan in his hand. He was walking leisurely and seemed to be endlessly carefree. These 3 paintings seemed to be from a long time ago. The paintings were yellowed, but they were drawn very realistically. Everyone was vivid and lifelike on the paper. Although the face of the woman in green was covered by a veil, the tenderness of her emotions could be seen at a glance. It was a subtle contrast to the heroism of the man on the horse and the elegance of the white-robed scholar. While admiring it, Zhang Xiaohua realized that there was a large blank space beside the scholar's portrait. It would be perfect if another painting was placed there. Could it be that there was a 4th portrait here in the past? Zhang Xiaohua scratched his head. But this thought only flashed through her mind. Whether there was a portrait or not, it had nothing to do with Zhang Xiaohua. Why would she think about it? Zhang Xiaohua seemed to be used to picking up junk. After looking at the portraits, she searched the magnificent hall for a long time. But she couldn't find any junk that she could pick up. She couldn't help but feel resentful. While she was setting up this dazzling jade hall, she nagged, "Ai, this is such a luxurious hall. Elder of the fragrant religion, can't you put some magical tools here? Even if you don't like them, you can just throw 1 or 2 away. You can't blame me for coming here." As she spoke, she walked to the door of the jade. Looking at the door, Zhang Xiaohua couldn't help but smile. Could it be that this door that can move is also a part of this jade? When she released her divine sense, she looked carefully. Indeed, the door had an extremely intricate mechanism that was connected to the hall. Looking at the pattern of the jade, it matched the hall perfectly. Needless to say, the door was also a part of the entire jade. "I've been defeated." Zhang Xiaohua sighed, and was about to retract his divine sense. What is this? Zhang Xiaohua's divine sense suddenly discovered that around the jade door, in other words, the exterior of the jade hall that was covered by the mountain rocks, there were actually some yuan qi fluctuations. Could it be, the entire hall is a magical tool? Or is there a part that can be refined? Thinking about it, Zhang Xiaohua made a hand seal and escaped into the stone wall. She followed the outside of the hall and used her divine sense to search. This jade hall was quite big. She followed the traces of the fluctuation on the outside, but couldn't find any clues. Zhang Xiaohua's vision turned dark, and she came to an empty space. "Oh no, I only looked in front and didn't pay attention to the back. Where am I? Sigh, Lingering Fragrance Peak really can't be rushed. I haven't walked much, and I'm already lost." Zhang Xiaohua secretly regretted it. Before he could take out the night-luminescent pearl, the darkness in front of him suddenly changed, and his eyes were filled with light. What's going on? Zhang Xiaohua was extremely surprised and thought. However, when he saw everything before him clearly, his expression couldn't help but change greatly. Ladies and gentlemen, what do you think? It turned out that what appeared in front of Zhang Xiaohua was a straw hut in front of a river. Zhang Xiaohua was standing on a wooden bridge that extended into the river's waters. Isn't this the place where I met my dream and Shirtai? Without waiting for Zhang Xiaohua to understand, a girl bounced over and asked with a smile. Xiaohua, did you catch a fish today? Fish. Zhang Xiaohua was stunned. When she lowered her head, she saw the great wisdom sword in her hand. Wasn't she holding a fishing rod in her hand? Looking at her body, she was exactly the same as when she was 12 years old. Illusion array. Zhang Xiaohua immediately understood in his mind and wanted to release his divine sense. But when he saw that Meng was also 11 years old, he immediately changed his mind. Yes, even if it was an illusion array, so what? Ever since he parted ways with Meng at the riverside, they hadn't seen each other for many years. Although their encounter in the mortal world was short, Meng had left a deep mark in his heart. Although he didn't know where Meng was and could only taste her appearance in his memory, he didn't know what Meng was like now. But as long as he could see Meng again, be together with Meng again, and smell her breath again, so what if he fell into an illusion array? However, Zhang Xiaohua thought for a while. It seemed that at the riverside he was seriously injured. Most of the time, he was lying on the bed and was taken care of by Meng. He had never done anything like fishing before. Of course, since it was an illusion array and he could be together with Meng, Zhang Xiaohua was too lazy to pursue the matter. She smiled and said, "Who said I didn't? I just caught 2 kissing fishes. Seeing that they were family, I couldn't bear to part with them, so I let them go this time." Xiaomeng, don't tell me you want to eat 2 kissing fishes in fish soup? Hee, brother Xiaohua, you are really too naughty, Meng said as she stepped forward and pointed her fair finger at Zhang Xiaohua's forehead. This intimate action was something that Zhang Xiaohua had imagined countless times in his mind. Now that it really happened in the illusion array, Zhang Xiaohua was dumbfounded. You know why? Behind Meng, another girl appeared. She was Nie Xiaoyu, who appeared in Zhang Xiaohua's mind when he said little fishy just now. Brother Ren, are you okay? Nie Qinyu was still shy and asked with her head slightly lowered. Before Zhang Xiaohua could answer, Meng sneered. Xiaohua, who is she? Looking at Meng's cold and indifferent expression, Zhang Xiaohua was shocked and hurriedly said, Meng, don't misunderstand. Little Fishy is a little girl that I saved on the road. I was just sending her home. Nie Qinyu nodded and said, Sister, Brother Ren is really a good person. He was just sending me home. Just sending you home? Meng looked at Zhang Xiaohua and then at Nie Qinyu and said with a smile, It seems that he also won the martial arts competition. He even taught me the Forget Worry Sutra. Well, he also told me about the cicada's mournful cry to the eternal pavilion. Do you think I don't know anything? Looking at Meng's indifferent and sorrowful eyebrows, Zhang Xiaohua felt a pang of heartache. Even though they were in the illusion array and he knew that this was just a memory in his heart, Zhang Xiaohua was reluctant to let Meng be unhappy. He stepped forward and held Meng's fair hand. He said in a low voice, Meng, you are the only one in my heart. When I saw you before, I was still young and didn't know anything. But all these years, I have been thinking about you all these years. Meng was surprised and said, What nonsense are you talking about? We have only met for a few days. Zhang Xiaohua smiled bitterly and said patiently, Anyway, you are the only one in my heart. If I don't tell you now, I will regret it when you leave with Shirtai. Really? Meng smiled mysteriously and said, Brother Xiaohua, you said you missed me, but why didn't you look for me? Zhang Xiaohua scratched his head and said, I wanted to look for you, but I don't know where you are. Jiang Hu is so big At this time, Meng held one hand and covered Zhang Xiaohua's mouth with the other hand. She said with a smile, Brother Xiaohua, don't say any more. I know what you are thinking. Actually, I am the same. Since I met you, my heart can't hold anyone else. I just want to be with you for the rest of my life. Me too. Zhang Xiaohua said happily. But Meng turned around and pointed at Nie Qinyu. What about her? Her? Zhang Xiaohua was stunned. At this time, Nie Qingyu had already burst into tears. She covered her mouth and said, "Brother Ren, I know what you are thinking. You can go with this sister. I am fine." Zhang Xiaohua's heart ached. At this time, Meng flung her hand and ran away quickly. She said as she ran, "Brother Xiaohua, it is not that I don't believe you, but I don't trust this girl. I think you should find a way to make her disappear from this world. Only then can I see you." After saying that, Meng disappeared without a trace. The fishing rod in Zhang Xiaohua's hand also disappeared, and the prajna heavy sword reappeared. Nie Qingyu took a step forward and cried like a pear blossom in the rain. She said, "Brother Ren, just kill me. I miss you and miss you. If I can't see you, I would rather die." Ah! Seeing this, Zhang Xiaohua laughed. "Even if it is an illusion, even if it is a fake person in my heart, it is a real killing. Will my dream allow me to do it? Do you think I'll let myself do it?" Before Zhang Xiaohua could finish her words, a crisp kacha sound rang out. It was as if a bronze mirror had shattered. All the scenes disappeared, and another scene appeared in front of Zhang Xiaohua's eyes. Chapter 854. Peacock and Ren Xiaorao had spent a lot of time together in the refining heart cave, and they were already familiar with each other. Peacock had also been through countless trials and tribulations. She knew that Ren Xiaoyao was just her inner demon, an illusion created by her in the refining heart cave. He was not real. Initially, she was still a little reserved, but after a while, she could not care less. In addition, Peacock remembered Abbess Jing Fan's advice that she had to follow her heart in the refining heart cave and let nature take its course. Only then would she have a chance to break the array. Hence, she no longer held back. It was all her own wishful thinking and no one would know. Maybe she could find a chance in this place. At this time, Peacock and Ren Xiaoyao were chatting about some private matters. Peacock would occasionally ask about cultivation methods and opportunities. Suddenly, Ren Xiaoyao, who was hugging Peacock, disappeared in a flash of light. "Oh, did I succeed in refining my heart? Did I break the array?" Peacock was overjoyed. However, the starlight and her body lying in midair told her that she was still in the illusion array. "What's going on? I didn't kill Ren Xiaoyao. How did he disappear?" While Peacock was still in shock, she saw Zhang Xiaohua's head poking out from not far away. He looked around as if he was looking for something. Peacock smiled and leaped forward. She hugged Zhang Xiaohua's neck and said, "Hubby, where did you go? I'm asking you a question." This Zhang Xiaohua was the real Zhang Xiaohua. When he was enlightened in the illusion array, he didn't kill Nie Qingyu just because she was an illusion. Instead, he used her to please the illusion. The illusion array immediately changed and sent Zhang Xiaohua to another place. In the blink of an eye, Zhang Xiaohua saw a place filled with stars. He was walking in the void, thinking that the dream was hidden somewhere in the starry sky. Thus, he didn't dare to release his divine sense, afraid that if he broke the array, he wouldn't be able to see the dream. Just as he was looking around for his dream, he saw the peacock flying towards him. The peacock hugged him and affectionately called him husband. Zhang Xiaohua fainted and mumbled, "Sister Kong Yu, why are you here?" Yes, she called him hubby. How could he still call her Master Kong? Furthermore, Zhang Xiaohua did not expect to have a peacock in his heart. How could he not be embarrassed? Hearing Zhang Xiaohua calling her Sister Kong, Peacock giggled. She lifted Zhang Xiaohua's head and kissed him on the cheek. She said, "You're such a lovable and hateful person. You called me your wife and now you're calling me sister. Do you think I should slap you to death?" Peacock's kiss was so real that it made Zhang Xiaohua's face burn. He thought to himself, Since when did I have such thoughts about Master Kong? This is so flattering." Then he was shocked. Don't tell me she saw it in her dream. If she sees it, she'll be angry again. With that thought in mind, Zhang Xiaohua immediately pushed Peacock away and said, "Big Sister Kong, this is not good. What if someone else sees it?" Peacock smiled. "Aren't you me and I'm you? How can anyone see it?" As she spoke, she walked in front of Zhang Xiaohua and floated up. She wrapped her arms around Zhang Xiaohua's neck and said, "It's all because of you. You still want me to be your wife? Even now you still call me big sister. Then you're me and I'm you?" Zhang Xiaohua smiled bitterly. "How can I not know? But isn't there a dream beside me? Hearing Peacock's reprimand, Zhang Xiaohua peeked at the stars around them and whispered, "Then I'll call you my wife, but what?" Peacock's face was a little red. She grabbed Zhang Xiaohua's hand and said shyly, "You'll only tell me the truth if I let you put it here?" Zhang Xiaohua put his hand there, and felt like he was struck by lightning. His heart was trembling. Oh my God! How can this illusion array be so real? He thought to himself, and his fingers scratched a few times. Could it be that this is what it feels like? The strange feeling from his hand made Zhang Xiaohua's heart itch. But he quickly calmed himself down and looked around. "Dream, where are you? Please don't see me." Peacock's face was still burning. She scolded. "I knew you wouldn't be honest. Sai, who asked you to be my nemesis? I saw you in the Rejuvenation Valley. Sai, I don't know, it's nothing, but I just can't forget you. Oh my God, why do I feel so good about myself?" Zhang Xiaohua was surprised. "Master Kong is an inner disciple. I can't believe I thought so badly of him. But since you're my enemy, I've given you everything here, you. Why can't you let me see through, let me see the secrets of heaven?" As she spoke, Peacock hugged Zhang Xiaohua again and stretched out her cherry lips. Petrified. Zhang Xiaohua felt moist and fragrant. His heart was like a monkey on a horse. This illusion is really... Sai, it's too erotic. I have to deal with it quickly. Don't let Ming see it. Should I kill her? How can I do that? Even if it's fake, I have to follow my heart. I can't kill innocent people for their treasures. Oh, Heaven's Way, just by looking at the Heaven's Way, I can let Sister Kong go? Thinking of this, Zhang Xiaohua had an idea. He looked at the starry sky and cupped Peacock's face. He kissed her red lips and smiled. "If you can leave just by looking at the Heaven's Way, then your husband will open your eyes and let you see what the real Heaven's Way is." As he spoke, he crossed his legs and sat with his palms facing the sky, trying to understand the Heaven's Way in his mind and at the same time, trying to show his understanding to the starry sky. Zhang Xiaohua was right. In the illusion array, the demon was born from the heart. Even the understanding of the Heaven's Way could be shown. However, the Heaven's Way was still the Heaven's Way. It was not something an illusion array could compare to. How much of the Heaven's Way could be shown was debatable. But, even if it was just a trace of the Heaven's Way, in this illusion array, how unparalleled was it? In an instant, the starry sky, which was silent and motionless, began to move slowly, as if every star had its own unique path, and the entire starry sky's path was projected. Peacock was stunned on the spot. She was just challenging her own heart as usual, challenging her nemesis, Ren Xiaoyao, who knew that his answer this time would be different from before. He would show her the Heaven's Way. She was pleasantly surprised and could not believe her ears. When she saw the reflection of the Heaven's Way in the starry sky, she knew immediately that this was the end result of her painstaking cultivation of the Mortal Heart Sutra. Such a heaven-defying opportunity was placed right in front of her eyes. Immediately, she crossed her legs and sat down, channeling the Mortal Heart Sutra. Her eyes stared unblinkingly at the starry sky, trying her best to imprint the Heaven's Way in her mind. After an unknown amount of time, the Heaven's Way was still moving, but Peacock could not understand it anymore. She was after all a martial artist, and the Mortal Heart Sutra was just a way to pursue the path of immortality. To be able to learn a trace of the Heaven's Way from Zhang Xiaohua's way was already a rare and precious thing. Peacock knew that her opportunity had come to an end. She immediately closed her eyes and channeled her Mortal Heart Sutra. Not long after, Peacock realized that her Mortal Heart Sutra had reached an unimaginable level. It would not be an exaggeration to say that it had reached the peak of perfection. Peacock was overjoyed. She stood up and looked at the Heaven's Way that was still moving, and then looked at Zhang Xiaohua, who was sitting cross-legged. She could not help but think, "Master was right. This man is my nemesis, and only by going with the flow will I be able to get the opportunity to break the array. I might even be able to achieve a breakthrough in the Mortal Heart Sutra." At the same time, Peacock suddenly thought, no wonder Master was so tight-lipped about her experience in the Cave of Refined Heart. How could she tell anyone about such an embarrassing experience? Peacock's face turned red as she thought about it. At this moment, the Heaven's Way stopped moving. Zhang Xiaohua stood up with a smile. Have you understood it? Peacock smiled and jumped into Zhang Xiaohua's arms. She buried her face in his neck and murmured, "Yes, yes." Just as she uttered the words "I'm enlightened," Peacock felt a force tugging at her. She immediately understood that she had broken the array and was about to leave this illusion. She was about to leave this man who had been with her for who knows how long. And she was about to leave this man who had given birth to a child with her. "I'm leaving Xiao Yao, my husband. I'll always remember everything that happened here." Peacock's tears dripped down and stained Zhang Xiaohua's clothes. She opened her cherry lips and bit Zhang Xiaohua's neck, leaving a row of deep teeth marks on Zhang Xiaohua's neck. Without waiting for Zhang Xiaohua to jump and scream, Peacock disappeared without a trace. Only Zhang Xiaohua's cries of pain resounded through the entire starry sky. "Lord Kong, Sister Kong, Lady Kong, you are too cruel. It's just an illusion. How can it be so realistic? I'm really in pain." Fortunately, Peacock had already left the illusion array. Otherwise, who knows what would have happened? Zhang Xiaohua touched the teeth marks on her neck and smiled bitterly. "I don't know if Meng will see them when I find her later. I can't bring the things in the illusion array out. Don't tell me I still have these teeth marks on my neck when I go out." Just as Zhang Xiaohua was about to continue searching for Dream, she heard someone shouting from afar, "Ren Xiaoyao, stop right there." Chapter 855. Zhang Xiaohua was surprised to hear the familiar voice. When he turned around, he was even more surprised. He thought to himself, "Are you kidding me? When did this Chun Chen appear in my memory again? Could it be that I also have some feelings for her?" Chun Chen held a long sword and was very happy to see Zhang Xiaohua. She gritted her teeth and said, "You little thief, stop right there. I gave everything to you. You eloped with Nie Qianyu." "What?" Zhang Xiaohua fell down. Fortunately, they were in a strange starry sky and he was not afraid of falling down. "What the hell is going on? When did my memory become so bad? But if you want to argue, Nie Qianyu is in front of Chen Chen." While he was thinking, Chen Chen came closer and was in a flying position. Zhang Xiaohua saw Chen Chen glaring at him coldly with a face full of anger, and did not hesitate to stab the sword into his heart. Zhang Xiaohua knew that the sword was just an illusion and would not really take his life. However, when he thought about how Lord Peacock had bitten his neck just now and it was still hurting, was there any need to say anything else when the sword pierced through his body? Therefore, he raised his right hand and grabbed the tip of the sword. He exerted a little force and snatched it away. Chen Chen was not surprised to see the long sword being snatched away. She widened her almond-shaped eyes and said, "You little thief, how dare you treat me like this and not let me kill you to vent my anger? You are really ungrateful." After that, she did not care about the long sword and grabbed Zhang Xiaohua's ear and shouted, "How dare you cheat on me again and again? How dare you break my heart again and again?" Ouch. It was the first time in Zhang Xiaohua's life that a girl had pulled his ear like that. He couldn't help but feel strange. Even if he was angry, he couldn't bring himself to be angry. Thinking about the appearance of the illusion peacock just now, Zhang Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat. He threw his sword on the ground, grabbed Chen Chen's hand that was pulling his ear with his left hand, and wrapped his right hand skillfully around Chen Chen's waist. He smiled and said, "Sister." Chen. Before he could finish his sentence, Zhang Xiaohua felt something was wrong. He didn't seem to be calling her that intimately enough. Sure enough, Chen Chen's hand was grabbed by Zhang Xiaohua and she immediately tried to break free. She even pulled Zhang Xiaohua's ear and scolded, "You were calling me your wife just now and in the blink of an eye, you've become my sister." Zhang Xiaohua was speechless. Why was this exactly the same as what Peacock said? However, it dawned on her that they were all in her own illusion. How could there be any difference? When she was with Peacock earlier, Zhang Xiaohua already had a way to deal with girls, and now it was not difficult. She just held Chen Chen in her arms and coaxed her gently. It did not take long for Chen Chen's anger to dissipate. However, Zhang Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat. Chen Chen is even more voluptuous than Peacock? How come I didn't know that I could still remember this in this illusion? What am I thinking about every day? In the illusion, Chen Chen was more straightforward than Zhang Xiaohua thought. After a few rounds of tenderness, Zhang Xiaohua had taken the initiative to comfort Chen Chen, but now, Chen Chen was the one who took the initiative to take the initiative. Ouch! What should I do? Although it's an illusion. But, after all, it's not a dream. Maybe the dream is watching us. Just now, when she saw Nie Xiaoyu, she was already furious. If she saw me and Chen Chen together, what would happen? Zhang Xiaohua managed to keep her mind calm. Although there was a faint expectation in her heart, when she thought about her dream, she could not help but hesitate. Seeing Chen Chen's blushing face and her seductive eyes, Zhang Xiaohua did not dare to be careless. She moved closer to Chen Chen's ear and said, "Waifu, wait a moment." Chen Chen glanced at her. "Xiaoyao, my husband." Chen Chen bit her lips lightly. Her eyes were watery. "What do you want?" Zhang Xiaohua was stunned, but immediately understood. Her face immediately turned red and she said hurriedly, "Don't you want to see the heavenly Tao?" Heavenly Tao? Chen Chen was originally infatuated, but when she heard the heavenly Tao, she immediately became wild with joy. She thought to herself, sure enough, the opportunity has arrived. Of course you're my husband. Of course you'll give it to me. As she said this, her little hand unceremoniously pinched Zhang Xiaohua. Zhang Xiaohua was embarrassed and did not dare to be careless. She pushed Chen Chen slightly and calmed her mind. She expelled all the distracting thoughts and fantasies in her mind. Then, she communicated with the illusion array, and the stars in the sky began to move. Chen Chen looked at her husband, who had been with her for who knows how long. Seeing the surrounding stars change, she immediately sat cross-legged like a peacock and operated the Mortal Heart Sutra. Soon, she became a solemn statue, which was completely different from before. Chen Chen's cultivation level was lower than Peacock's by 2 levels. The evolution of the heavenly Tao was only less and stopped. Even so, the improvement of the Mortal Heart Sutra was not something that Nun Jingfan could achieve. Of course, this was only the cultivation of the Heart Sutra. It was different from martial arts or internal energy. Looking at Chen Chen, who stood up, Zhang Xiaohua was a little reluctant, but still asked with a smile, "Wife, have you understood?" "Husband, with you of course I can understand." Before Chen Chen finished speaking, her face immediately lit up with joy. Zhang Xiaohua looked at her with a smile. She knew that Chen Chen in this illusion would disappear again. Sure enough, Chen Chen hugged Zhang Xiaohua and kissed him fiercely on the lips. Zhang Xiaohua responded by hugging her with his left hand and covering his neck with his right to prevent another sneak attack. However, suddenly, her lips hurt and there was a salty taste. "Oh God, it's impossible to guard against it," Zhang Xiaohua cried out miserably. Chen Chen smiled and said, "I will always remember you, my husband." Before she finished speaking, Chen Chen disappeared. Only Zhang Xiaohua was left behind, shouting, "Why are you like Peacock? Could it be that all the girls in my memory are this violent?" Licking the wound on her lips, Zhang Xiaohua was in pain but happy at the same time. Her heart was flying. Chen Chen, who was out of the illusion, was a little surprised. "What? There's blood in this illusion?" Then she wiped it with her finger and shook her head. "How is this blood? Are there golden threads in human blood?" Just as she was about to shake off the golden liquid, a sweet smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. She placed her finger in front of her mouth and licked it with her small tongue. She thought to herself, "This is my husband's blood. How can I waste it?" Just when Chen Chen was feeling happy, she heard someone exclaim. Someone else came out. Chen Chen was suddenly awakened. She saw that she was standing where she was before she entered the refining heart cave. Beside her was her senior sister, Peacock. "Senior sister? You came out too?" Thinking about what happened in the illusion, Chen Chen could not help but blush. Fortunately, there was a veil covering her face so others could not see it. "Congratulations, junior sister, you came out too." Peacock had calmed down and said with a hint of melancholy, "Senior sister, aren't you the same? You came out a long time ago." Where are the other senior sisters?" "Not out yet." Chen Chen looked around and was surprised. It was already nightfall and a day had passed. There were only 2 people who came out of the illusion safely. "It's still early. I heard the elders say that the refining heart cave will only close tomorrow morning. By then, the disciples who didn't break the illusion will be forced out. Oh, why didn't the master say this? The elders were afraid that we would be lucky and affect the refining heart cave, so they didn't say anything. We can't tell the disciples who enter the refining heart cave in the future. Before Peacock finished speaking, there was a cry of surprise. Peacock. Chen, you. Why did you come out so early? A figure flew in from afar. Looking at the familiar figure, was it not their master, Jing Fan Nun? Peacock and Chen greeted with a smile and bowed. We did not disappoint you. We passed the test of the refining heart cave. Good. Jing Fan Nun's eyes were almost filled with tears. She hoped that her 2 disciples could pass the test. However, she had been through the test herself and knew how difficult it was. She did not dare to have too much hope in her heart. Now that it had only been a few hours, she was worried and came to take a look. Who would have thought that? Both of her disciples came out and passed the test of the refining heart cave. Jing Fan Nun held the hands of her 2 disciples. She was a little choked up. Back then, she did not pass the test of the refining heart cave, and had always been brooding. Now that her 2 disciples were so good, they came out of the refining heart cave safely as soon as the sky turned dark. She had mixed feelings. She was moved by the progress of the younger generation, and also moved by the passing of time. The refining heart cave was meant to refine one's state of mind, but it had nothing to do with the improvement of the sutras. Therefore, Jing Fan Nun did not think that her disciples could use the extraordinary experience of the refining heart cave to improve their sutras to an unimaginable level. Jing Fan Nun also knew about the experience of the refining heart cave, so she did not ask them. Only Chen held back for a moment. He really wanted to ask, so he asked in a low voice, Master, when you came out of the refining heart cave, did your sutras, mortal sutras, change in any way? Jing Fan Shirtai was startled and shook her head. Master was pushed out of the refining heart cave by the illusory formation in the early morning. He didn't pass it, so how could there be any progress in his mental cultivation method? Then he thought for a while and said, However, I heard from the great elder and the hierarch that although the refining heart cave does not directly help one's cultivation, it has a direct and indirect effect on one's future cultivation. Only by passing the test of the refining heart cave can one become a direct disciple. Only then can one obtain the inheritance of our fragrant religion in the secret inheritance room. Ah, eh? Peacock and Chen both let out a cry of disbelief. What's wrong? Jing Fan was startled and asked, Is there something wrong? Chapter 856. After Zhang Xiaohua sent away the peacock and Chen in his illusion, he took a deep breath and patted his chest. Smack smack. His lips were bitten by the illusion of Chen, and he touched his neck, which was bitten by the illusion of the peacock. A feeling of longing for more welled up in him. Zhang Xiaohua had never had such an erotic dream in his 18 years of life. He never thought that this dream would come true in the illusory array of the fragrance cult. Moreover, this erotic dream came like a violent storm. Even if Zhang Xiaohua could soar in the storm like a swallow, he was still caught off guard. It was just that. Zhang Xiaohua felt that this was not his dream, and it was not the Nie Qinyu who had feelings for him. This made Zhang Xiaohua feel even more incredulous, and he felt a little guilty. However, what was even more strange was that Zhang Xiaohua did not know that there were 2 inner disciples of Lingxiang Peak hidden in the depths of his consciousness. Chen's voluptuous is really not bad. Peacock's skin is also good. Zhang Xiaohua rubbed his chin and looked at the place where the 2 disappeared just now. There was an inexplicable sense of melancholy in his heart. Was this an erotic dream without a trace? Immediately, Zhang Xiaohua collected his thoughts and searched for the dream in this illusory array. It was just a pity that Zhang Xiaohua had just evolved the heavenly axiom in the illusory array. This was the truth of heaven and earth that was much more profound than the illusory array. Zhang Xiaohua had used the heavenly axiom to drive the illusory array, and had already infiltrated a trace of the heavenly axiom into the illusory array. For someone who had comprehended the heavenly axiom, How could the illusory array extract any inner demons from his heart? Therefore, Zhang Xiaohua searched for a long time, and did not find any trace of the dream. Moreover, even Nie Qianyu was nowhere to be found. Strange, where did they all go? Just now, they came one by one. Those who should come are here and those who shouldn't come are here. Now those who should have left are gone, and those who shouldn't have left are gone. This illusion array, why is it gone? By the way, besides Dream and Nie Little Fishy, Peacock and Chin Chin are here. Why aren't Little Orange and Zhang Pinger here? Damn, this guy doesn't seem to be satisfied yet. However, when she thought of Zhang Pinger, Zhang Xiaohua suddenly realized that she had been in this Li Chui Valley for a long time, and did not know what the situation outside was like. Although Mei Suiying did not mention the time of the test, she guessed that it would be dark soon. She would not fall asleep in this Li Chui Valley, right? Forget it, I don't know where Ming has run off to. I'd better go out and take a look. I'll explain everything here clearly. When I'm free in the future, I'll come here to play. Having been in the illusory array for a long time, Zhang Xiaohua naturally knew how to break the array. She cast a few incantations, and a passage appeared in the starry sky of the illusory array. Zhang Xiaohua rode the wind and went straight in. Outside the Li Chui Valley, the sky was completely dark. The few disciples who came to watch the fun in the morning had already left. Only two young girls stood there, letting the mountain wind blow their clothes into a mess. Needless to say, the girl was Zhang Pinger. She stared at the entrance of the valley, almost unable to take her eyes off it. The melancholy on her face was obvious. The other person was Zhang Pinger's sixth senior sister, Shui Linglong. Although Shui Linglong was also staring at the entrance of the valley, she obviously did not care. However, her gaze occasionally swept across Zhang Pinger's face, and there was some worry in it. Shui Linglong looked at the sky, lifted her collar, and patted Zhang Pinger. She said in a low voice, "Junior sister, don't wait. Those who enter this ghost valley rarely come out after 4 hours. Look at Ren Xiaoyao. From what you said, he should have been in there for 12 hours. He might have died inside. You see, third senior sister doesn't even want to wait here. You'd better go back with me." Third senior sister. She is really hateful. How can she treat junior brother Ren like this? Junior brother Ren is such a good person. He saved me 3 times, and also saved Master's life. I only wanted to repay his kindness by forcefully bringing him from the pill opening hall to Lingering Fragrance Peak. I originally wanted to, but I actually suffered from third senior sister's evil scheme. I will not let her off. I only quarreled with her for a few words, and she wants to kill him. Zhang Pinger was somewhat gnashing her teeth. Shui Linglong was speechless. Mei Sujin and Zhang Pinger were both her senior sisters. Although she had a good relationship with Zhang Pinger, if she was not done with Mei Sujin, she also had to think about it. Since things are like this, let's go back. Master and senior sister will come back tomorrow. This matter, let them decide. Zhang Pinger's eyes didn't leave the entrance of Li Chui Valley at all. She said very firmly, "Sixth senior sister, if you are bored, you can go back first. I still want to wait. Junior brother Ren's martial arts are very strong. This ghost valley definitely won't be able to stop him." But Shui Linglong was somewhat angry. But in this ghost valley, one can't escape just because their martial arts are high. Previously, didn't Mo Xiangong's disciple also die inside? Your junior brother Ren. How can he be compared to Mo Xiangong's disciple? Zhang Pinger slowly shook her head. Junior brother Ren's martial arts might not be as high as Mo Xiangong's disciple, but I have a premonition that he will definitely not let me wait in vain. Seventh junior sister, could it be that you have already turned into a devil? How can he come out alive? Furthermore, even if he comes out alive, how can you get what you want? Don't forget that you are the direct disciple of the deputy master of the Lihua Temple. Your status is very noble. Ren Xiaoyao is just a little medicine boy of the pill-sprouting hall. Although he has some martial arts, he is the lowest disciple guarding the garden in the Lihua Temple. Even the disciple guarding the pill furnace can't compare with him. His master has already repaid his kindness by bringing him from the pill-sprouting hall to the Lihua Temple. In the future, He still has to walk his own path. There are thousands of disciples in the Lihua temple. How can he, a disciple with no background, stand out? You. Even if you want to be together with him, master? How can she agree? How can Mo Xiangong's elders agree? Hearing this, Zhang Pinger's face turned slightly red. She used her hand to tidy up her hair that was messed up by the mountain wind and slowly said, "Sixth senior sister is wrong. Since you have seen through my feelings, I don't mind telling you that the matter of being together with him is too far away. I don't dare to think too much about it. I only wish to be in the same hall as him, and be able to see him every day. That is enough for me." Crazy, crazy. Shui Linglong stomped her feet with an exasperated look on her face. At this moment, a voice was heard. Is it senior sister Zhang? It's already so late. Why don't you go back to wash up and sleep? Senior brother? When Zhang Pinger heard the familiar voice, she was overjoyed. She screamed and threw herself at him. When she saw Zhang Xiaohua's face under the light, she threw herself into his arms without a care for anything else. Zhang Xiaohua wanted to dodge, but she didn't dare to. She would feel embarrassed if she didn't dodge. When Zhang Xiaohua's hot body was in his arms, Zhang Xiaohua could only hold the heavy sword with both hands and raise it up high. She didn't forget to rub her nose with one hand, as if she was in an illusion again. Senior brother? Hearing Zhang Xiaohua's strange address, Shui Linglong frowned. When she saw Zhang Pinger's rudeness, she shook her head. She looked around and saw that there was no one around. Then, she looked at Zhang Xiaohua's pitiful appearance. She couldn't help but laugh in her heart. When Shui Linglong walked in front of her, she coughed twice and said, "Seventh junior sister, this is the Fiery Palace. You are the direct disciple of the Fiery Palace." Zhang Pinger's tears of joy had already wet the front of Zhang Xiaohua's clothes. When her unbridled emotions were interrupted by Shui Linglong, she immediately felt ashamed. When Zhang Xiaohua's scent rushed into her nose again, Zhang Pinger immediately let go of her arms and took a few steps back. She stood silently in the darkness. Shui Linglong looked at Zhang Pinger and said to Zhang Xiaohua with a smile, "Junior brother Ren, congratulations. You have been in there for more than 12 hours. You actually came out alive." Zhang Xiaohua cupped his hands and said, "Thank you, senior sister Shui. It was all thanks to you and senior sister Shui that I was able to escape safely." Junior brother Ren, did you encounter any danger in the Ghost Valley? Zhang Pinger asked timidly in the shadows. She was both concerned and embarrassed. "Yes, but it's all in the past. It's good that I came out alive. Don't you think so? Senior sister Zhang." At this moment, Zhang Xiaohua's words were the truth in Zhang Pinger's heart. Zhang Pinger immediately nodded. "Yes, that's right. It's good that you came out alive. You didn't disappoint." She couldn't finish her sentence. Zhang Xiaohua's expression changed. He cupped his hands and said, "Thank you for your concern, senior sister Zhang. It would have been good if I came out earlier. I have made you worry for so long." It's nothing. I had nothing to do here. I was just enjoying myself here." Zhang Pinger didn't mean it, but she unknowingly said Ren Xiaoyao's name. Zhang Pinger felt even more ashamed. She lowered her head to her chest. Her fair nape was especially seductive in the night, especially since Zhang Xiaohua had just been seduced. Zhang Xiaohua's mouth was a little dry. He swallowed his saliva with difficulty. He thought for a moment, and took out something from his chest. He smiled and said, "Senior sister Zhang, senior sister Shui, where is senior sister Mei? This ghost face mushroom. I picked it. However, I searched the entire Lichui Valley and this is the oldest one. How old is it? I don't know." What Zhang Xiaohua took out was the ghost face mushroom that he had picked at the bottom of the valley in Lichui Valley, but it was not the ghost face mushroom that had already taken shape in the cave. But thinking about it, it was reasonable. With Zhang Xiaohua's stingy character, how could she take out the best thing? When Zhang Pinger heard this, she immediately lifted her head and bit her lips. "It's all right, junior brother Ren. As long as you can get the item, it's fine. Third senior sister is obviously making things difficult for you. How can there be a 1,000-year-old ghost face mushroom in the Ghost Valley?" Zhang Xiaohua tactfully handed over the ghost face mushroom and said, "I'll follow senior martial sister's decision." Chapter 857. When Zhang Xiaohua handed the ghost face mushroom to Zhang Pinger, high above in the west of Lingxiang Peak, where the refining heart cave was located, Nun Jingfan couldn't hide the surprise on her face. She grabbed Qinchin, who couldn't hide his joy, and asked in a loud voice, "Qinchin, you. Say that again. You actually practiced the Mortal Heart Sutra to great success?" Qinchin was a little proud and flaunting. He nodded and said, "That's right, master. I went through the tempering of my mind in the refining heart cave, and broke through the bottleneck of the mental cultivation method. I achieved great success in one leap, and got out of the illusory array." How is this possible? Jing Fan Shirtai frowned and said, "The dreamland can only sharpen one's state of mind. It will be of great benefit to one's cultivation in the future. I've never heard of anyone being able to break through any bottleneck in the refining heart cave, let alone practice the technique to the highest level. When you entered the cave in the morning, although I didn't come, I knew clearly about your progress last night." Qinchin hugged Nun Jingfan's arm and said with a smile, "Why would I lie to you? Won't you know if you check?" Nun Jingfan woke up from her dream and immediately checked. She also practiced the Mortal Heart Sutra, and was very familiar with it. After a while, she found it even more unbelievable. Although Qinchen's internal strength didn't have any obvious improvement, but the Mortal Heart Sutra was indeed practiced to great success. Even she, as her master, could not catch up. If there were no surprises, Qinchin would have practiced the Mortal Heart Sutra to perfection in less than 10 years. How is this possible? How is this possible? Abbess Jingfan mumbled. "It's only been a day, and she's already reached the realm of great success." Then Nun Jingfan asked, "Qinchin, what did you encounter in the refining heart cave?" "Master," Qinchin said coquettishly, "this is disciples' privacy. You don't ask." As soon as Nun Jingfan said this, she also regretted it. She knew the secret inside. She knew that although Qinchin was straightforward, he would definitely not answer this question. While Abbess Jingfan had yet to recover from her shock, and was still complaining about the unfairness of the heavens, Qinchin smiled and asked Peacock, "Senior, you came out earlier than me, have you? Have you improved your heart technique?" Qinchin was showing off a little. Her martial arts had never been as high as Peacock's, and her cultivation method was also a few notches lower. Now that she had made the great leap, of course she wanted to show off in front of her senior. When Abbess Jingfan heard this, she also asked, "That's right, Peacock, how's your heart technique?" Peacock was silent for a moment. She seemed to be organizing her words and hesitating at the same time. Seeing this, Master Jingfan comforted her. "It's okay, Peacock. Your junior sister Qinchin is just an anomaly. Don't complain about it. Just focus on your cultivation, and you won't fall behind her." Qinchin was very happy, but she complained, "Master, look at what you're saying. Can't my martial arts be better than senior?" At this time, Peacock opened her mouth and said, "Junior, I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you this time. Master, my mortal heart technique has been perfected." What? This was Master Jingfan's surprise. How is that possible? This was Qinchin's doubt towards Peacock. She also told Peacock what Master Jingfan said. Master Jingfan immediately checked, and sure enough, it was the same as Qinchin's. There were no special changes in her martial arts and internal energy. Her heart technique had indeed been perfected. This was the realm that countless disciples of Mo Xian Temple had been pursuing for thousands of years. It was also the realm that Master Jingfan dreamed of, but could never reach. When Qinchin saw this, she panicked and asked, "Senior, what did you encounter in the refining heart cave? Why, it wasn't easy for me to become stronger than you. How did you leave me so far behind?" Peacock's face was burning, but she said, "Junior, are you confused? How can you talk about what happened in the refining heart cave?" Qinchin was also stunned. Of course, he had been tight-lipped in front of his master. How could Peacock talk about it? After that, Qinchin extinguished the thought of getting to the bottom of the matter. After a while, Qinchin's gloomy mood disappeared. Even if Peacock was much better than him, wasn't he also one of the few disciples who had perfected the mortal heart technique in the past 1,000 years? After a long time, the petrified Master Jing Fan woke up from her shock and melancholy. She looked at the two disciples that she had raised lovingly and smiled. I forgot to quickly tell this good news to the leader. Our fragrant religion has produced an extremely talented disciple this time. The inheritance of Lingxiang Peak will not be lost. You two wait here for the other senior and junior sisters to come out. After that, she didn't wait for them to speak and used her qinggong to rush to the top of the mountain. Peacock and Chun Chun smiled when they saw that their master was so emotional. It was already late at night, and an elder was sitting cross-legged in the distance. He was meditating with his eyes closed, and did not pay any attention to what Master Jing Fan and the others had said. In front of the refining heart cave, only Chun Chun and Peacock stood there alone. Fortunately, the two of them were standing in front and behind each other, so they could talk. After Abbess Jing Fan left, Chun Chun was about to grab hold of Peacock and pester her to ask how she managed to master the Mortal Heart Sutra in such a short time. However, just as he reached out and was about to ask, he remembered what Peacock said. That's right. It's just my own experience. It's an anomaly. Who would have thought that my nemesis would be the guy who held the girl's hand, kissed her on the lips, and even set her marriage? How did he leave an impression in my heart? I only saw him as a person who could talk. He's just a little medicine boy in the pill-expanding hall. Now he's only been recognized by Elder Sage. He's just a disciple on duty at Shirxing Peak. He's really too far away from me. How is it possible? Still, he was so handsome in the illusion. That martial arts. TSK, it's incredible. If I have a husband like him, it's worth it. Sigh, it's just an illusion. How could he know such profound martial arts? And that ethereal heavenly axiom? That stellar transposition. Sigh, how could a country bumpkin like him know that? Sigh, if I can live in an illusion, I won't regret it for the rest of my life. Thinking of this, Chun Chun blushed shyly. Everything that happened in the illusion should not be described to others. It was the most secretive thing in her heart. Senior sister, what did you encounter? Chun Chun thought of her own romantic experience. She was curious about other people's privacy, but it was not appropriate to ask. Peacock stood there quietly. The wind of human mountain blew her clothes, but it could not blow up the veil covering her face. Her expression could not be seen. For a moment, in front of the refining heart cave, on the seemingly desolate mountain peak, the two sisters were filled with thoughts. They lowered their heads and did not speak. Perhaps only God knew that these two poor sisters were thinking of the same person. And this person was sitting cross-legged in a secluded hut, taking stock of the day's harvest. First, he took out the small pitch-black bead. He had already seen this thing in the cave. Now, even if he used his divine sense with all his might, he could not penetrate it. Helpless, Zhang Xiaohua took out a small jade box and put the pitch-black bead away. Then he used the most effective technique he had at the moment. After that, it was the strange herbs that she had picked from the cave. They looked very old, and Zhang Xiaohua did not know the use of them. Zhang Xiaohua did not hurry to organize them. Instead, she took out the compendium of herbs, and quickly skimmed through the parts that she had not seen before. Sure enough, in this jade scroll, not to mention the ghost face mushroom, there was nothing similar to these strange herbs. Moreover, from the compendium of herbs, Zhang Xiaohua vaguely felt that the ghost face mushroom, as well as those picked from the cave and the ghost valley, were not the same as ordinary herbs at all. Maybe it's because of the black fog? And the herbs that are usually used absorb the essence of heaven and earth? But this black fog is formed by the black gas that comes from underground. Could it be that this black gas is the same as the essence of heaven and earth? Zhang Xiaohua was deep in thought. No, the delusion breaker, I could only see things related to the essence of heaven and earth. Even a living person could not see it. Since it could clearly see the black gas that was as thin as gossamer, then this black gas must be extraordinary. Thinking about how little yellow used to rely on vitality stones to survive, and now it could absorb the black fog, black gas, and even that white thing, connecting all these together, it was easy to conclude that the black gas was also the essence of heaven and earth. Regardless of the essence of heaven and earth, these herbs are all precious. Who knows when they will be of use? It's better to keep them well. By the time she finished keeping the herbs, it was already very late. However, thinking about the day's harvest, Zhang Xiaohua was still in high spirits. I wonder where this Yuzhuachuan came from. I should ask Zhang Pinger who this Jinggang is. Seeing how fearless he is, he must be a well-known figure on Lingering Fragrance Peak. Tisk tsk, that illusion array is really not bad. If I'm not practicing in the future, I might as well enjoy myself in it. Anyway, it's all fake and no one will know. Thinking about it, Zhang Xiaohua's face revealed a wretched smile. There was a gorgeous palace on Lingering Fragrance Peak. Although it wasn't dazzling, it was simple and elegant to the extreme. Every single brick and tile of the palace emitted a graceful and luxurious aura. There were countless pavilions within the palace that were brightly lit, and in the surroundings of the pavilions, there was a gurgling stream, a small bridge, and the occasional red-crowned cranes that walked about emitted a serene and dignified aura. This was precisely Emoshui Palace on Lingering Fragrance Peak. In the main hall of Emoshian Palace, there were only a few people. An old woman in a palace robe was sitting at the front. The veil on her face hid her expression, but her tone was filled with surprise. What? Both Peacock and Chunchin had joined the battle? And his mortal heart mantra has improved greatly? Chapter 858. Yes, senior sister. Peacock and Chunchin are outside the Refining Heart Cave, waiting for the other disciples to come out. Just now, I have already checked. Their mortal mantra has already reached an inconceivable height. I am ashamed to say that even I have never cultivated to their current level. I'm ashamed. Junior sister Jingfan, you're thinking too much. Everyone has their own destiny. Junior sister just hasn't had the right time yet, so it's nothing. Besides, there's an old saying, the pupil surpasses the master. If the disciples aren't as good as the masters, then how can our fragrant religion be passed down from generation to generation and prosper? Jing Fan's face turned cold. She bowed and said, "Thank you for your warning, senior sister. I'll remember it." Well, since the two of them have passed the primary selection, and the mortal heart technique has reached great success, this time's primary selection can be said to be perfect, and haha, the matter of the inheritance can be considered settled. The hierarch's laughter was loud and clear. Congratulations, hierarch, an old woman next to her said. In the past, we had to first worry about the primary selection, then worry about the inheritance. Today, these two children have really done well. They actually managed to overcome all the obstacles in the Refining Heart Cave. It's really the blessing of the 10,000 years of fragrant religion's ancestors. Another masked elder also smiled. Hierarch, it can be seen that the time for our fragrant religion to prosper has arrived. Haha, the hierarch laughed and waved her hand. Although it's a joyous occasion and we can also inherit our immortal heart technique, it's still too early to say that it will prosper. Then she looked outside the palace, looking at the dark night. She said with some melancholy, in the past 10,000 years, the world has changed greatly. The immortal heart technique's world yuan qi has greatly decreased. Although our fragrant religion is blessed by the heavens, with the immortal heart technique's restrictions and formations, it's already difficult to retain a bit of world yuan qi on the 19 peaks. What's more, the aroma sect has an inheritance palace, and the secret rooms inside guarantee that each generation will have one or two disciples who practice the immortal Dao arts. Although the immortal Dao arts can't be used often, it's still an inheritance, and can guarantee that the aroma sect won't be wiped out in the Jianghu. Yes, the immortal heart technique is too powerful. No matter how high your martial arts are, it's still reduced in front of the immortal heart technique. Perhaps this is the main reason why our fragrant religion has been able to stand for 10,000 years. But the heart technique's room has a limited amount of primordial stones. I don't know how long it can last. Even this sect protecting grand formation, to be honest, I'm not sure about it. The heart technique's appearance, Jianghu is. This is the prophecy of an immortal Dao senior. Now that the great sect protecting formation is becoming more and more stable, even the opening time has gradually become fixed. Although it is not the same as before, it can be considered normal. This concerns the survival of our fragrant religion. Everything is important. The hierarch said solemnly. These are troubled times. Those rascals who sneaked into our fragrant religion have been making a lot of moves recently. If it weren't for the fact that we have to find the source and that the inheritance is more important, we would have eliminated them long ago. After thinking for a while, the hierarch said, "What's the situation in the ruins of Huan?" An elder bowed and said, "Hierarch, according to the disciple guarding the place, there were some movements in the ruins of Huan on the day of the heavenly thunder, but he can't be sure that the heavenly thunder has something to do with the ruins of Huan." "How would he know?" The hierarch sneered. "What heavenly thunder? It's clearly an attack from a Dharma artifact. The attack was so sharp that even the peak protecting formation couldn't block it. What else could it be other than that thing in the ruins of Huan? Could it be that someone from the immortal path sneaked into our fragrant religion and tried to kill a weak disciple?" "Hierarch, you're right. Only an attack from that thing could have such power. It's just that this thing has been in the ruins of Huan for so many years without any movements. We don't even know what that thing is or what it looks like. How could it suddenly?" The hierarch waved his hand and said worriedly, "Isn't this what I'm worried about? It's because of that thing's inexplicable problems that we're rushing the direct selection to confirm the inheritance. No matter what happens, you and I won't become sinners of the fragrant religion." "Hierarch, you're wise." All the elders bowed and saluted. The elders have also worked hard. After a few hours, the direct selection will end. You should also let the hall masters of the various halls return, and let them rest for a few days. Then we can discuss how to eliminate the rascals who have sneaked into the cult, and the matter of entering Huansu. "Yes, Hierarch." Everyone was respectful. Early in the morning, the rising sun broke through the clouds. Zhang Xiaohua suddenly opened her eyes in the secluded little house. At the same time, in front of the refining heart cave at the western foot of Lingxiang Peak, there was another female disciple in a purple palace dress beside Peacock and Chen Chen. The three of them were sitting cross-legged. When they saw the sunlight, they immediately stood up from the ground. There was a soft clang, and the mysterious pattern that had been spinning for 24 hours stopped. Then, like rolling clouds, it surged toward the pitch-black cave entrance. When the light and pattern were about to disappear, there was a clear humph sound. Dozens of light threads shot out from the pitch-black cave and nailed themselves around Peacock and the others. Chen Chen and the others seemed to have been warned and did not move. In a few breaths, the dozens of disciples who had entered the cave earlier suddenly appeared where they were standing. However, at this time they were in different forms. The moment the disciples of Emoshian Palace appeared in front of the refining heart cave, the light threads on their bodies were retracted. The mysterious pattern began to slowly spin around the cave entrance. The rotation seemed slow, but was actually very fast. In just a moment, the cave entrance was sealed. With a paw sound, a black shadow shot out from the sealed cave entrance. The hierarch, who had been standing at the side, waved his hand. The black shadow that was about to fly away immediately changed direction and flew directly into the hierarch's hand. At this time, at the cave entrance, a few illusory shadows flashed and a stone tablet appeared. It had returned to its original state of not being opened yesterday. Looking at the dozens of female disciples of Emoshian Palace who were pushed out of the illusion array, they were all lying on the ground in different postures. Their expressions were very strange. Some were happy, some were sad, some were angry, some were as calm as water. Some had their almond eyes wide open. Looking at their clothes, most of them were in a mess. Some were bare-chested, some were flirtatious, and some were even half undressed. In short, there was no one to speak of. Of course, there were also a few female disciples who were sitting cross-legged. However, the expressions on their faces were also very varied. It was as if they were fighting against their own inner demons. Peacock, Chun-Chin, and the disciple who passed the official selection were all flushed under their veils as they thought of all their experiences. On the other hand, the sect leader and a few elders were calm. They methodically walked into the crowd of disciples and sealed their acupuncture points. After that, they tidied up everyone's clothes. Then they clapped their hands and dozens of other female disciples came in a line from afar. They brought the disciples who had passed the direct selection out. After everything was tidied up, Jingyi came in front of Peacock and the others. Looking at the third disciple, she was surprised. Yen, I didn't expect. You also passed the official selection. Not bad, not bad. The female disciple lowered her head and said shyly, Thank you, Hierarch, for your praise. It's all because of Master's teachings. Shuezhen has always been in charge of the affairs of the labor camp. I know that. I didn't expect her to have taught such a good disciple. Then, as if she thought of something, she asked, Yinyu, in the refining heart cave, the heart technique you practiced, did it make any progress? Yu Yan's face was blank. No, Hierarch. I heard Master say that the refining heart cave is a trial of the mind. How could it have any effect on the heart technique? Then, she thought of something and turned her head to look at Peacock and Chunchen. Jingyi clapped her hands and said, Good. No matter what, this year's official selection greatly exceeded our expectations. There were actually 3 disciples who stood out. This can be considered as making up for the lack of results of the official selection for the past 50 years. Alright, Peacock, Chunchen, Yuyan, you all go back and rest. In a few days, go to the Inheritance Palace and carry out the inheritance ceremony. Let's see which one of you can inherit my fragrant sex legacy. Yes, we will follow Hierarch's orders. The 3 of them bowed. Below the Lingxiang Peak, in the fiery hall, a woman in palace attire sat high up on the throne. She smiled at the woman beside her who was also masked. Junior Sister Yin, these few days of the official selection have been hard on you. Hierarch has ordered you to rest for a few more days. The woman shook her head and said, It's nothing. The official selection is related to the inheritance of our fragrance sect, who wouldn't do their best. Fortunately, Emoshian Palace has 3 disciples who passed the official selection. This is better than the previous 10 years of hard work. Isn't that right? Elder Jingfan has 2 disciples all of a sudden, and even Abbess Shuezhen has a disciple. They both have good lives. Just look at my good-for-nothing disciples. If they were half as good as them, I would be satisfied. Senior Sister Hua, you can't say that. Every disciple has their own characteristics. They can't be lumped together. Hall Master Hua waved her hand. Forget it, Junior Sister Yin. Don't say it. I have heard you say this for decades. You have 7 good disciples, especially the youngest, Zhang Pinger. TSK, she is so considerate to you. She even rushed to the Yulon Grand Canyon for your illness. How can I not be envious? Speaking of this, she suddenly thought of something and said, Oh right. I just heard from the disciples patrolling the mountain that your 3rd disciple, Mei Sujin, used our fiery hall's Lai Chui Valley yesterday. It seems that she was testing the martial arts of some disciple. That Lai Chui Valley is also known as the Ghost Valley. Go back and ask, why did she use that place? Vice Hall Master Yin's expression changed greatly. She quickly got up and said, Understood, Senior Sister. I will immediately go back and investigate. I will report back to you. Chapter 859. Lihua Temple. In the pavilion in the middle of the lake, Vice Temple Master Yin sat with a veil on her face. She looked at the disciple in front of her and asked in a deep voice, Suying, why do you want to use Li Chui Valley? Tell me. Mei Suying raised her head to look at her master, then looked at the expressionless eldest senior sister. She smiled and said, It's nothing, Master. It's just that the day before you went to Emoshian Palace, eldest senior sister told me to do something. Vice Temple Master Yin frowned and turned to ask, Zhuoqi, why did you call Suying? Me? Eldest senior sister Han Zhuoqi obviously didn't expect her to be involved. She was stunned and looked at Mei Suying strangely. When Mei Suying saw this, she immediately smiled and said, Eldest senior sister, did you forget? Didn't you say a few days ago that Master told you to do something? You wanted to go to Emoshian Palace with Master, but you were afraid that 7th junior sister would be anxious, so you told me? Han Zhuoqi slapped her forehead and said, That's right, Master. Didn't you tell me to test the martial arts of that alchemy disciple called Xiaoyao? This disciple was recommended by 7th junior sister, and can be considered Master's savior. Disciple is going to Emoshian Palace with Master. I was afraid that Ping Er would be anxious, so I chatted with 3rd junior sister. If Pinger couldn't find us, I would let third junior sister test for me. However, she immediately understood and turned pale with fright. Third junior sister, you wouldn't let this disciple go to Ghost Valley, would you? Why wouldn't I? He's going to Ghost Valley. Vice Temple Master Yin coldly snorted and said. Even the Temple Master knows. Temple Master knows? Mei Suiying was also stunned. She immediately smiled and said, Master, eldest senior sister, I'm just being kind. You see, no one has entered Li Chui Valley for a long time. There must be mountains of herbs inside. Letting Ren Xiaorao take advantage of the opportunity to go in and pick some. Isn't it the best of both worlds? Furthermore, Sir Cult Leader has personally said that a martial arts test is a must. Disciple has thought for a long time, but still could not think of any test that fits Sir Cult Leader's taste. I only feel that testing martial arts in this Li Chui Valley can show Sir Cult Leader's benevolence. Deputy Hall Master Yin didn't seem to be interested in asking so many questions. He waved his hand and said, What are the results of the test? Did that Ren Xiaoyao come out alive? Mei Suiying shook her head slightly. Disciple waited for 8 hours but didn't see any movement, so I came back first. 7th junior sister and 6th junior sister are standing guard over there. This disciple doesn't know the exact outcome. However, there are very few people in Li Chui Valley who can last for 6 hours. This disciple feels that. Hearing this, Vice Hall Master Yin couldn't help but speak harshly. Mei Sujin, don't you think you've gone too far? Seeing that Vice Hall Master Yin was angry, Mei Sujin immediately stood up and bowed. Disciple knows her wrongs. Master, please punish me. Vice Hall Master Yin smiled bitterly. No matter what, Ren Xiaoyao is Master's savior. Your 7th junior sister did everything she could to get him to Distant Fire Hall. You, on the other hand, died a few days later. If I had known earlier, why would I have asked Sir Cult Leader for help? Master. Disciple also without waiting for Mei Sujin to finish speaking, a voice came from outside. Master, eldest senior sister, you're finally back. You have to uphold justice for me. 2 women flew in. Wasn't the one who was shouting in front Zhang Pinger? Vice Hall Master Yin shook his head. Whoever you say will arrive. This lingering fragrance peak is really strange. As soon as she saw the pavilion, Zhang Pinger threw herself to the ground and cried, Master, you have to uphold justice for me. 3rd senior sister, she used her position to avenge a private grudge. Mei Sujin was anxious and argued, Master, don't listen to her nonsense. When did I use my position to avenge a private grudge? Vice Hall Master Yin glared at her and said angrily, Shut up. Then he comforted Zhang Pinger. Pinger, don't be anxious. Speak slowly. Thus, Zhang Pinger sobbed and told him about how she and Zhang Xiaohua met Mei Sujin that day. Vice Hall Master Yin didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He glared at Mei Sujin again and said with a smile, Your 3rd senior sister was only joking with you. How could you take it seriously? Even if you offended Sujin that day, she wouldn't be so ruthless just because of a few words from Ren Xiaoyao. Just now, your 3rd senior sister had already told Master the whole story. She only wanted to borrow Ren Xiaoyao's luck to pick more herbs. Who would have thought that it would end up like this? So, even if your 3rd senior sister was wrong, it was an unintentional mistake. She didn't really want to take Ren Xiaoyao's life. Sigh, this Ren Xiaoyao was such a good child. It's all my fault. Pinger, I think this child's body is also gone. Make a cenotaph for him. When it's finished, Master will also burn incense for him. Zhang Pinger listened to Master's words. At first she nodded, then shook her head. When she heard the last few words, she was even more puzzled. She wiped her tears and asked curiously, Ren Xiaoyao is dead? Master, did 3rd senior sister curse him in front of you again? At this time, not only Vice Hall Master Yin, but Han Zhuiqi and Mei Sujin were also surprised. Ren Xiaoyao, he's not dead? Seeing everyone's surprise, Zhang Pinger felt better. She said proudly, Ren Xiaoyao's martial arts are very good. How could a mere Ghost Valley take his life? If he's not dead, why are you crying? Vice Hall Master Yin turned his head and looked at Shui Linglong, who came with Zhang Pinger. Your 7th junior sister is right. Yes, Master. I also saw it with my own eyes. Shui Linglong bowed and answered. How good. Linglong, go and call Ren Xiaoyao here. After Shui Linglong went out, Zhang Pinger took out the ghost face mushroom that Zhang Xiaohua gave her yesterday and said, not only did Ren Xiaoyao come out, but he also picked a 500-year-old ghost face mushroom. With a hiss, Vice Hall Master Yin sucked in a breath of cold air. There's actually a 500-year-old ghost face mushroom. Yes, Master. Ren Xiaoyao risked his life to pick it. According to him, he almost lost his life. Zhang Pinger said pitifully, but this still doesn't meet Third Senior Sister's requirement. Third Senior Sister wants Ren Xiaoyao to pick a 1,000-year-old ghost face mushroom to pass. Wu Master, this is the reason why I'm crying. Ridiculous. Vice Hall Master Yin glared at Mei Suiying for the third time. Mei Suiying's face turned red. Don't cry, Pinger. Master made the decision to let Ren Xiaoyao pass the Lichui Valley's martial arts test. Zhang Pinger's face was slightly red, but there was joy in her eyes. She said, Thank you, Master, for your kindness. What kindness? Ren Xiaoyao has the strength. Of course, he passed, Vice Hall Master Yin said with a smile. Not long after, Zhang Xiaohua followed Shui Linglong to the pavilion on the water. Zhang Xiaohua stood at the entrance of the pavilion from afar and greeted everyone. Soon after, Vice Hall Master Yin said, Ren Xiaoyao, congratulations on passing the martial arts test. You can take off your status as a reserve alchemy disciple. In a while, I will send someone to report to Mo Shuigong. Your waste token will be sent tomorrow. You are now an official alchemy disciple of the Lihua Palace Hall. Zhang Xiaohua was not surprised. He bowed and said, Thank you, Vice Hall Master, for your support. Vice Hall Master Yin said with a smile, It's all your credit. You don't have to thank me. I saw that you passed through the Lichui Valley yesterday. It seems like you didn't suffer any injuries. Oh, your lips seem to be injured. Zhang Xiaohua's lips and neck were bitten yesterday. However, his body's self-healing ability was very strong. He recovered more than half of his body in one night. Only the teeth marks on his lips could be faintly seen. If it was a normal day, Vice Hall Master Yin might not know. However, when he heard that Su Mo had passed through the Ghost Valley, he couldn't help but look carefully. Zhang Xiaohua touched his lips awkwardly and said, Yesterday I accidentally fell down in the Lichui Valley. Vice Hall Master Yin didn't pursue the matter. He only said, Then, tell me about what happened yesterday. Okay. Zhang Xiaohua knew that this moment would come. He had already planned it in his heart. He only told Vice Hall Master Yin about what happened yesterday. What? What did you say? The black fog in the Lichui Valley has dissipated? Vice Hall Master Yin stood up and asked in shock. Zhang Xiaohua did not understand why Vice Hall Master Yin was so nervous. He rubbed his nose and said, Vice Hall Master, think about it. If the black fog did not dissipate, how could I have the ability to pick the ghost face mushroom at the bottom of the valley? Good. This can be considered a great contribution. Vice Hall Master Yin turned to Han Zhuoqi and said, Zhuoqi, quickly go and confirm it. If it's true, immediately report to Mo Shuigong. The disappearance of the ghost fog in the Ghost Valley might be related to the fragrant cult. After Han Zhuoqi took the order and left, Deputy Hall Master Yin asked again, Ren Xiaoyao, since you didn't encounter the ghost fog at all, there is naturally no danger. But why didn't you come out immediately after picking up the ghost face mushroom? Instead, you stayed in there until it was dark? Zhang Xiaohua laughed embarrassedly, reporting to Vice Hall Master. Senior Mei wanted a 1,000-year-old ghost face mushroom. This is obviously not the ghost face mushroom. I searched the valley 3 times, but it was a waste of time. And what? And the night before yesterday, I heard that there was going to be a test yesterday. I was too excited and did not sleep well. Plus, I was tired from wandering around the Lichui Valley. So, I sat in a place facing the sun and slept, fell asleep. Everyone was speechless. What kind of person is this? After a long while, Vice Hall Master Yin finally came to his senses. He clapped his hands and said, What a lucky person. Then he thought for a moment and said, However, Ren Xiaoyao, although you are an alchemy disciple of the Lihua Temple, you must strictly follow the rules of the temple. Step by step, I cannot give you too much help. Zhang Xiaohua laughed. That is natural. I am willing to follow the rules of the Lihua Temple. Good. As an alchemy disciple, you will start by guarding the garden. After you have learned the basics of watering, you can enter the pill room and learn the basic alchemy techniques. Guard the garden? A garden to grow herbs? It seemed that Zhang Xiaohua had always been fated to grow herbs. Chapter 860. The sun was high up in the sky, illuminating the Lingxiang Peak. A pair of red-crowned cranes were leisurely strolling by the side of a secluded and flat mountain path. Occasionally, their long beaks would come into contact with each other. Their pure white wings, which were mixed with black spots, would flutter open and close. It was a peaceful scene. Suddenly, there seemed to be some noise. The pair of red-crowned cranes were startled. They spread their wings and flew up. However, just as they flew up, they turned their heads to look. Thinking that it was someone they knew, they circled around and landed on a mountain rock. Look at you, senior brother. Every time, you purposely scare this pair of cranes. How could that be? I just wanted to remind them that not everyone in this world is kind. Don't let your guard down just because others are kind. If there comes a day when they are no longer at Lingering Fragrance Peak, won't they be caught and roasted? Puffed. Two young people, a man and a woman, came out from the corner. The young woman's skin was exceptionally white. Her features were picturesque. Her originally cold face was filled with charm when she smiled. She was Li Huahal's Zhang Pinger. As for the young man, needless to say, he was tall and thin with small eyes and a flat nose. He was Zhang Xiaohua. Zhang Pinger's smile was like a flower as she said, "Everyone says to burn the zither and cook the crane. You are good, roasting it and eating it. You are really, really shameless." Zhang Xiaohua still rubbed his nose and said in confusion, "What? Why didn't I notice this good point of mine?" Then, seeing that Zhang Pinger had finished laughing, he said in a serious tone, "Meat is easy to get old if it is cooked. It is better to roast it. It can add flavor and atmosphere. Plus, there is the 100-flower wine. TSK, just thinking about it makes me drool." The two red-crowned cranes quietly looked at the two people who had been walking on this mountain path recently. They were puzzled. One person was always talking with a straight face while the other was always laughing. They were completely unaware that they had become roasted meat in someone's mouth. As the two of them talked, they walked away. Their laughter gradually faded away. But after a while, it was unknown what was so funny, but the sound of silver bells rang out again at this time. Several male disciples came from behind. When they heard the clear and melodious voice in front of them, their faces unconsciously revealed expressions of jealousy, envy, and puzzlement. One of the disciples curled his lips and said, "I don't know how this little brat called Ren Xiaoyao managed to win senior sister Zhang's favor. How could the two of them be so brazen? Everyone has their own preferences. Who knows? Isn't that so? Senior brother Yu from Mo Nonggong is so wise and mighty. How could he not enter senior sister Zhang's eyes? Not to mention senior martial brother Yu. Even I am more handsome than this Ren Xiaoyao, aren't I? Senior sister Zhang didn't even spare me a glance. By the way, did senior martial brother Yu leave the mountain for business? Why haven't I seen him for so long? Wait and see, when senior brother Yu returns, there will definitely be a good show. Isn't that so? Isn't he just a little medicine boy from the Pill Tower Hall? He actually managed to hug senior sister Zhang's thigh. But who is senior sister Zhang? She is the cold beauty of our Fire Palace Hall. She is the person that senior martial brother Yu likes. He actually dares to get involved. Just wait to be taught a lesson." As he spoke, the disciple picked up a small stone from the ground. He didn't use any strength in his hand and directly threw it at the red-crowned crane that was standing beside the mountain rock. The red-crowned crane was obviously used to these people. It wasn't vigilant until the small stone hit its body. Although it didn't hurt, it was still startled and flew away. A few clear and loud cries rang out. The two red-crowned cranes circled a few times. They looked at the crowd with puzzled eyes and spread their wings to fly away. "Why did you provoke these red-crowned cranes for no reason?" a disciple scolded. The disciple said in a bad mood, "I didn't think so before. These red-crowned cranes are similar to that tall and thin Ren Xiaoyao. My heart is indescribably vexed. Forget it, let's go. The crowd rushed away noisily. It had been a few days since Zhang Xiaohua's martial arts test. Under the consolation of her master, Zhang Ping'er didn't manage to get any reply from Mei Sujin. After all, Mei Sujin had been entrusted by senior sister, and could do it at a cheaper price. Although the Ghost Valley test was a little difficult, according to Zhang Xiaohua, there wasn't any black fog inside. Instead, it became the simplest test of picking herbs. Moreover, Zhang Xiaohua even slept inside and came out. This made everyone speechless. Therefore, they could only conclude with Zhang Xiaohua successfully passing the test and receiving the job of looking after the herb garden. Of course, what happened next was just as Zhang Ping'er wished. Vice Hall Master Yin found a medicinal garden not far from Zhang Ping'er's alchemy room for her. Moreover, this garden was quite a distance away from the other gardens, so it was very quiet. Due to this convenience, Zhang Ping'er would drop by Zhang Xiaohua's little house every morning and call Zhang Xiaohua to walk together. The two's intimacy was witnessed by the distant Fire Palace disciples. How could they not be jealous? They only felt that this Zhang Xiaohua had run into dog shit luck and gained Zhang Ping'er's favor. As they looked around in self-pity, they also hoped that the so-called senior brother Yu would come over and give him a little suffering. Actually, even Zhang Ping'er's heart was a little anxious. Before the secluded orchid evening refinement, Yu Zhuochuan would come over almost every day. Even when she was recuperating, she did not speak much to him, and he would also appear in front of her every few days. However, these few days, she had not seen Yu Zhuochuan, and Zhang Ping'er's entire heart was on Zhang Xiaohua. Her heart was filled with joy and uneasiness. Seeing the two of them walking to a flat herb garden, Zhang Ping'er smiled and said, "Senior brother then. You can go ahead with your work. Remember, read up on the books on growing herbs. If there's anything you don't understand, I'll help you ask Master. However, I think that with senior brother's inner strength, this will be a small matter. If not for Master saying that you have to progress step by step, I would have already given you the vitality stones to try." No matter. Junior sister, don't be anxious. I've only been here for a few days, and it's not good to stand out too much. I know that senior brother is modest. What would senior brother like to eat for lunch? Zhang Xiaohua smiled bitterly. There's no need, junior sister. I'll just eat some wild fruits on the mountain. I'm not interested in other things. TSK, who said that he wanted to roast the red-crowned crane. Did I hear wrongly? Zhang Xiaohua looked up at the sky and said, "Is that so? Ooh, why didn't I know?" Ha. Zhang Ping'er laughed and waved her hand. She ran forward, and after walking for a while, she immediately turned back and said, "Wait for me for lunch." After saying that, she did not wait for Zhang Xiaohua to reply and immediately ran away. Zhang Xiaohua scratched his head. Seeing Zhang Ping'er's increasingly obvious actions, he really did not know how to deal with it. He had only casually said some witty words, and it was enough to make her laugh. Just a few days ago, they had inadvertently touched each other's arms. These few days, she had been pestering Zhang Xiaohua for lunch. After a few more days, he did not know how far it would develop. Was this still the famous ice beauty of the distant flame hall? Zhang Xiaohua turned around and entered the herb garden. He muttered to himself, "Could this be the legendary girl chasing a guy?" After entering the garden, Zhang Xiaohua found the tree that he usually sat under, and took out a book. It was the book that Zhang Ping'er had secretly given to him a few days ago. She said that it was a book that distant flame hall's alchemists had to read. When Zhang Xiaohua heard it, he knew that it was something that he would need to learn in the future. Zhang Ping'er was just being selfish and wanted him to learn as soon as possible. Hence he did not decline and kept it. Although Zhang Xiaohua didn't care about it, when he opened the book for the first time, he was shocked, even surprised, because what was recorded in the book was none other than the immortal Tao method of growing medicinal herbs. Oh, this description was not accurate. It should be similar to the ecstasy finger. It should be using martial arts to imitate the immortal way to grow herbs. Of course, this method was not the same as Zhang Xiaohua using the immortal way to clear the weeds and pluck the herbs. It was using the immortal way to activate the yuan qi in the primordial stone to nourish the herbs in the field. It was the same as Zhang Xiaohua using the heaven and earth yuan qi to nourish the herbs. Like I said, the immortal way of growing herbs must have its own immortal way of growing herbs. How can it be the same as a normal person growing food? Using the immortal way to activate the yuan qi is the right way. However, Zhang Xiaohua was still puzzled. This book only talked about how to activate the yuan qi. It did not explain how to clear the weeds and how to water the spring water. But after thinking about it, he understood how precious the primordial stone was. Using it to activate the yuan qi to nourish the herbs was already the limit of the incense sect. As for clearing the weeds, watering the spring water, and plucking the herbs, it was better to do it by hand. There was a lot of content in the book, and the methods used were all different. Zhang Xiaohua had been reading it carefully for the past few days. He already had the primordial stone in his pocket, so of course he was in a favorable position. He sat under a tree and read the contents of the book. Just as he was about to take out the primordial stone from his pocket, he suddenly heard a few people walking by the side of the herb garden. Zhang Xiaohua naturally turned his head to look, and saw a few people walking by and looking at him. One of them said loudly, "Look, isn't that the brat? That gigolo? That guy who lives off a woman Pui?" He spat on the ground. "If senior brother Yu is not here, why didn't senior brother Yen teach him a lesson? The more I look at this brat, the more uncomfortable I feel. You don't know this, but senior sister Zhang is the direct disciple of our vice hall master. With such a big tree, who would be afraid of her? Even senior brother Yen would have to avoid her in the future. She'll lower your voice. It won't be good if others hear you. Hee, this brat is just a junior now. What can he do to me? Even if he has a meteoric rise in the future, why would he care about what I say today? If I don't say a few words now, it will be difficult for me to say them in the future." When Zhang Xiaohua heard this, he could only shake his head and look at the sky for no reason. Who knows my heart? On the lingering fragrance peak, in a large hall below the tall platform, a middle-aged man with a pair of bright eyes was holding a book in his hand. He was reading it attentively. A young disciple rushed in and stood at the entrance of the hall. Reporting to Martial Uncle, "This disciple has something to report." The middle-aged man was rather unhappy. He looked away from the book and scolded, "Can't you see that I am busy? If there is nothing important, don't disturb me." The disciple panicked, but he quickly walked forward and whispered a few words into the middle-aged man's ear. "What? How long has it been since third brother returned?" Chapter 861. What? Third brother hasn't returned for a long time? The middle-aged man was taken aback. He waved his hand and said, "Doesn't third brother often stay out late? What's there to be surprised about? If this is an important matter, what else is there that isn't important in your eyes?" Reporting to Martial Uncle. The disciple's face turned red as he whispered, "Martial Uncle, you did go out frequently, but he only went out for 2 days each time. The longest he went out was 3 days. Furthermore, Martial Uncle, you was usually accompanied by a disciple. Even if his whereabouts were known, it was definitely not like today where there was no news at all." "Is that so?" The middle-aged man frowned and said unhappily, "This kid doesn't know how to cultivate and is always thinking about crooked things. Why don't you try to persuade him? What has he been up to recently?" The disciple spoke in a low but clear voice about what had happened to Yu Zhuochuan during this period of time. The middle-aged man snorted and said, "She's just a little girl from the distant fire palace. Since when has old third's taste been so low? Humph, he even almost forced a disciple from the pill repository hall to sell her. What the hell is he doing? Oh, is this disciple related to that girl from the mythical flame hall? By the way, do you think your Martial Uncle you went to find trouble with that disciple?" The disciple replied respectfully, "This disciple doesn't know. However, that disciple from the pill repository hall is just an ant in my eyes. How could Martial Uncle you be interested in her? Forget it. Let's wait a few more days. Who doesn't know Yu Zhuochuan's name on Lingering Fragrance Peak? There shouldn't be anything wrong with her." After he finished speaking, The middle-aged man turned his gaze back to the book. That disciple tactfully bowed and left the room. After the disciple left, the middle-aged man looked at the sky for a while. He muttered to himself, "Isn't it obvious? That Yu Lao Sen must have fallen in love with another disciple. Why would he spend an entire month on a female disciple? It seems that Zhang Pinger is already long enough." Then he put down the book in his hand, rubbed the space between his eyebrows, and quickly walked out of the hall. Following the corridor in front of the main hall, they arrived at a huge courtyard at the back. This courtyard was extremely spacious and filled with strange flowers and trees. In the middle of the courtyard, there was a triangular pavilion with slanted eaves. There was an old woman dressed in palace attire sitting in the pavilion. The old woman's face was covered with a white veil, making it impossible to see her face clearly. Her snow-white hair was scattered behind her head. There was an incense burner the size of a fist in front of the old woman. A sandalwood stick as thick as a little finger was shooting straight into the air. When the middle-aged man entered the courtyard, he immediately put on a respectful expression and walked forward with light footsteps. Who knew that a voice would ring out? "Mu Jun, what's the matter?" That voice seemed to ring in his ears. When the middle-aged man heard it, a look of surprise appeared on his face. He exerted strength in his legs and soon arrived in front of the pavilion. He said happily, "Master, your cultivation has increased greatly again. I remember that you only noticed it when I was halfway through. Now that I have just entered, you already know. Moreover, listening to your voice, it has traveled so far, yet it still hasn't dissipated. The level of your internal energy, TSK, is far beyond what this disciple can compare to. Alas, I don't know if this disciple can reach your level in this lifetime." The old woman's face was covered with a white veil, making it impossible to see her emotions. However, there was a trace of joy in her voice. "Look at what you are saying. That was a matter of a few years ago. Half a year ago, I could already hear you entering the garden. Did you already know about it? Perhaps this disciple has forgotten." The middle-aged man wasn't nervous at all and smiled. "Mu Jun, it's a pity that you are not a direct female disciple, much less a disciple of Mo Ning Palace. You can forget about reaching this realm in this lifetime." "That's right. This disciple regrets not being born a female. Otherwise, Master wouldn't have been so melancholic all these years." "Melancholic?" The old woman was startled, then she smiled and said, "What are you talking about? Ruijin Palace is where my Eastyoung Peak's disciples are located. All of them are male disciples, and since I am in charge of Ruijin Palace, I naturally have more male disciples. This is nothing." However, she immediately sighed. "It's just that the girls I taught in Mo Ning Palace are too disappointing. If only their talents were half as good as yours, then they wouldn't have all lost in the direct selection. They even let junior sister Jingfan's 2 disciples enter. Yes, even junior sister Xuezhen's disciple won." Then she waved her hand. "Forget it, they are all Mo Ning Palace's disciples. This year, we finally have a direct disciple. Our Xian religion's inheritance has been settled, so this old woman can rest assured." Speaking up to here, she suddenly realized something and said, "Old people like to talk too much. Yes, is there anything important in the palace that doesn't happen? You can deal with the normal matters. Didn't I already hand everything over to you?" "Of course not. With Master overseeing things here, how could there be anything important? Disciple hasn't seen you in a few days, so I came to see Master," the middle-aged man gently said. The old woman slightly nodded, then she seemed to realize something and said, "Go do what you need to do. The matters in the palace might be a bit trivial, but don't mind it. Although you aren't a disciple of Mo Ning Palace, as long as I'm here in a few years, although I can't guarantee the position of Ruijin Palace's palace master, the position of vice palace master will definitely be yours." The middle-aged man quickly waved his hand and smiled. "Master, you're thinking too much. Disciple didn't mean that." Then he paused for a bit and said, "Junior brother, you hasn't come back for several days. Is there any problem?" "That little brat. Who knows where he ran off to?" The old woman seemed to be a bit helpless. "He relied on his good looks and the entire lingering fragrance peak. Is unscrupulous. I really can't do anything about him. Even the Lord Religion Head has mentioned this to me many times. Fortunately, this brat knows the severity of things and never provokes the disciples of Mo Ning Palace. Otherwise, as his master, I wouldn't be able to protect him. No, master is the famous head elder of our lingering fragrance religion. Even the Lord Religion Head has to give way to you. How could there be anything in the religion that would trouble master? This old woman was the head elder of lingering fragrance religion, and the head of Ruijin Palace. She was the Jinggang Shirtai that Yu Zhuochuan mentioned before she died. Jinggang Shirtai shook her head. You guys, how could you know how powerful the Lord Religion Head is? Back then, I passed the main selection with the Lord Religion Head, but in the Inheritance Palace she was one step ahead of me. Her current cultivation is even harder for me to reach at this point. Jinggang Shirtai was taken aback. She seemed to have thought of something and said unhappily, Shimujuan, is there something wrong? When the middle-aged man called Shimujuan heard this, he immediately smiled and said, Master, I just wanted to ask, did you see the Lord Religion Head again during the main selection? About my matter? Ha ha ha, Jinggang Shirtai laughed and said, I say, you've been here for half a day and kept talking about this and that. So you're still thinking about that matter. When she finished laughing, she stared at the lingering candles in front of her and sighed. Regarding your matter, I took advantage of the fact that the Lord Religion Head was happy these past few days to sound her out. However, just like before, the Lord Religion Head didn't say no, nor did she say yes. She only talked about it and I couldn't ask further. However, since the Lord Religion Head didn't explicitly reject it, I think there's still some hope. I'm just afraid that the Lord Religion Head will reject it outright. Shimujuan's expression did not change in the slightest. He only said gently, perhaps my request was a little overboard and made things difficult for the Lord Religion Head. Love between a man and a woman is a matter of mutual consent. The Lord Religion Head won't make things difficult for the Lord Religion Head. She probably has other concerns. Let's wait for a while. My eldest disciple has found a female disciple with no foundation. It's not a disgrace to her. What's so hard to say? As long as I'm here, I'll definitely make the decision for you. Shimujuan was overjoyed when he heard this. I'm relieved to hear that, master. I'll wait for you to bring me good news. Go ahead. Oh right, tell Zhuochuan to come to me when you see him. I have something to tell him. Yes, master. I'll send someone to look for him now. Shimujuan walked out happily. The fragrance of the flowers that he breathed in was exceptionally intoxicating. In the secluded herb garden in the distant flame hall, Zhang Xiaohua kept the small booklet. She recalled the technique in her mind and took out a primordial stone from her chest. She used her vital energy to follow the path indicated in the technique and guided the primordial stone out. Then she waved her hand and the primordial stone sprinkled the primordial stone evenly across the herb garden, nourishing the spiritual herbs in the garden. However, Zhang Xiaohua's divine senses could clearly see that although the primordial stone was sprinkled in the herb garden, 4 out of 10 of the primordial stones dissipated between heaven and earth. Sigh, this efficiency is too low. No wonder the disciples of Lingering Fragrance Peak coveted the secret of Huanqi Mountain Manor, being able to grow spiritual herbs without the use of primordial stones. Of course, this kind of spiritual herb would consume too many primordial stones. Even I would feel the pinch, let alone the Lord Leader of the fragrant religion. After keeping the primordial stone, Zhang Xiaohua thought that since the distant flame hall had this method of using their inner energy to imitate vital energy, the fragrant religion would definitely have the real deal. They would definitely have a technique that could guide the primordial stones to water spiritual herbs. They would definitely have a method to water and weed the spiritual herbs. Immediately, Zhang Xiaohua's heart was filled with excitement. Even her hands were itching. It was a pity that she didn't know where the jade slip was hidden. Otherwise, she would have used the earth escape technique. Even so, Zhang Xiaohua did not stay idle. She made a hand seal and burrowed into the ground, heading straight to the mountainside. The place that Zhang Xiaohua wanted to go to was a secluded place. It was a cave covered by a few mountain rocks. This was discovered by Zhang Xiaohua a few days ago when she was bored in the herb garden. Although it was a cave, there was a small hot spring in the cave. The spring water was clear and warm. Zhang Xiaohua had unceremoniously soaked in it for a while the day before yesterday. Perhaps she had thought of it recently. However, when Zhang Xiaohua popped her head out of the hot spring, she froze on the spot calm. There are more chapters. Chapter 862. What could be in the hot spring? Of course, it was a person. A woman, a white woman. Zhang Xiaohua had just emerged from the ground when he was dazzled by the white thing in front of him. Did I enter an illusion? Zhang Xiaohua pinched his cheeks and rubbed his eyes. The hot spring in front of him was surrounded by mist. A woman with long hair had her back facing him. She was humming an unknown tune as she used her hands to splash the warm spring water on her fair body. Beside the hot spring, Zhang Xiaohua placed his clothes on the mountain rock. There was a light purple palace dress on it. Come here, fly here. Zhang Xiaohua mumbled a few times. The woman did not fly in front of Zhang Xiaohua like in the illusion. Zhang Xiaohua immediately knew that something was wrong. Needless to say, he had bumped into an inner sect disciple bathing. Zhang Xiaohua made a hand seal and was about to escape. At this moment, the female disciple seemed to have heard the movement. She covered her chest with her hands and did not dare to look back. She squatted down in the hot spring and shouted loudly, "Who is it?" Zhang Xiaohua did not dare to answer. He was about to make a hand seal when the voice entered his ears. Zhang Xiaohua was stunned and stood there in a daze. He stared at the woman's long black hair and did not say a word. The true qi condensed in his fingers slowly dissipated and scattered between heaven and earth. The female disciple saw that no one answered, but she was still too embarrassed to look back. She shouted angrily, "How dare you? I don't care who you are, get out quickly. I am a disciple of Mo Nong Gong. If you don't leave, I will report to the sect leader and punish you." The more he heard the voice, the more familiar it was. Zhang Xiaohua's body almost trembled. He resisted the urge to rush forward and said with a trembling voice, You are Meng." "Of course I am Meng. You know my name? Good, since you know, why don't you get out quickly?" The woman was even more furious. Hearing the woman's affirmative answer, Zhang Xiaohua was wild with joy. In an instant, she felt as if she had fallen into an ice cellar. Her heart was so excited that it turned cold. Ever since he started cultivating the Carefree Heart Sutra, he had never felt so cold before. Zhang Xiaohua's mouth was a little dry. She licked her lips and said in a hoarse voice, "In the dream, I am Xiaohua. Zhang Xiaohua, do you still remember?" Zhang Xiaohua, Xiaogich. In an instant, the woman was also stunned. Then she turned around and stood up without hesitation. She looked straight at Zhang Xiaohua. Zhang Xiaohua no longer felt the urgency in his heart. The moment when Meng turned around was really very short, but in Zhang Xiaohua's eyes, it was incomparably long. When Meng turned around, he saw Meng's fair face and her big eyes filled with surprise and joy, especially the little beauty mark at the corner of her mouth. In Zhang Xiaohua's eyes, it was reflected in his heart. Just like how Peacock saw Zhang Xiaohua, Meng's face was magnified in Zhang Xiaohua's eyes. It was incomparably clear and filled his entire heart. It was as if at this moment, in this world, there was only Meng. Only Meng's dark eyes looked at Zhang Xiaohua. Then he met Nie Qinyu on the way back to Pingyang City. Then he knew that the Misty School had been annihilated. Then he received the bad news of Zhang Xiaohu's disappearance. Then he escorted Nie Qinyu back to Rejuvenation Valley. And because he saved Nie Qinyu, Valley Head Nie sent him to the incense cult to find Zhang Xiaohu. In the incense cult, he first went to Tianmu Peak. Then he went to the Valley of Orchids and met Zhang Xiaohu in the Valley of Orchids. Then he was sent to Shixin Peak. After a few months there, he had the opportunity to come to Lingering Fragrance Peak, because he saved Zhang Pinger. It was also because he came to Lingering Fragrance Peak and Fire Leaving Hall that he had the chance to take care of the herb garden. Then he had the chance to coincidentally find this small cave with a hot spring. And in this strange cave, the world was so big, but in this small cave, he saw the dream that he had yearned for day and night. It was a dream that he could never forget. Zhang Xiaohua thought that he came to the incense cult to find Zhang Xiaohu. But Zhang Xiaohu was living a comfortable life and did not need him to worry at all. Now, it seemed that everything that Zhang Xiaohua had done, was for one purpose: to find the lover of his heart, Meng. Everything that Zhang Xiaohua thought of in that moment seemed to be pulled by an invisible hand, bringing him step by step to the front of his dream. This hand was fate. It was karma. It was a long-cherished wish. Suddenly, in the way of heaven that Zhang Xiaohua comprehended, the way of karma that had just revealed its outline began to change with a rumbling sound. Just like Zhang Xiaohua in the illusion array, when everything stopped, Zhang Xiaohua clearly saw that the way of karma had turned into a huge palm. That palm stood in the way of heaven in the dazzling starry sky, and it was making a complicated and unusual gesture. Everything that Zhang Xiaohua thought happened in the blink of an eye. Before Zhang Xiaohua could find the blurriness in Meng's eyes, he heard Meng scolding. "What are you looking at? Why don't you go out first?" In all honesty, although Meng was facing Zhang Xiaohua's eyes were only looking at Meng's face that he could not forget for many years. How could he have the leisure to look at other things? Besides, Meng was like a fairy in Zhang Xiaohua's eyes. How could he bear to use his eyes to blaspheme the goddess in his heart? It was when he heard Meng scolding that Zhang Xiaohua immediately woke up. He immediately closed his eyes, turned around and walked out step by step. He did not think about releasing his divine sense at all. Standing at the entrance of the small cave, Zhang Xiaohua's mood was difficult to calm down. His eyes looked at the many medicinal fields at the foot of the mountain, and then looked at the countless beautiful flowers on the mountainside. Even the dazzling sunlight and fierce mountain wind were twice as lovely at this time. Zhang Xiaohua almost wanted to embrace this world. What a happy life! After a short while, Meng came out wearing the correct palace clothes. Her pitch-black hair was not completely dry, and there were droplets of water dripping on her clothes. Zhang Xiaohua saw the hairpin on her wet hair. It was the same hairpin that he had in his money pouch. Then, Zhang Xiaohua smiled and looked at Meng's flushed face. There was a faint trace of surprise in her eyes. After looking for a long time, Zhang Xiaohua whispered, "Meng, you have grown up. You are a little different from before." Yes, a few days ago, Zhang Xiaohua saw Meng in the illusion. She was indeed a little different from now. Meng laughed out loud. "We have not seen each other for 5 years. How can I not change? But you, brother Xiaohua, you have not changed at all. Oh, your voice has changed. It is much deeper than before." Zhang Xiaohua suddenly realized that other than his mother, Meng was the second person to recognize him at first glance. Even if his voice had changed. Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, "But Meng, your voice has not changed at all. If I did not hear your voice, I would have been scared away." Meng's face turned even redder and said shyly, "Your voice has changed. If I did not see your face, I would have killed you to silence you." Murder. Zhang Xiaohua did not say the last word. Meng smiled and asked, "Xiaohua, why did you come to the fragrant religion? I remember that when I saw you, you seemed to be a person from someplace. You have no connection with the fragrant religion. I followed my master to the lingering fragrance peak. You can't be a disciple of the fragrant religion." When Zhang Xiaohua heard this, he immediately asked, "That's right, where is the Shirtai? I heard that a Shirtai passed away at the lingering fragrance peak. Could it be?" Meng's eyes turned red and she said sorrowfully, "Yes, it was my master. She was an elder of the fragrant religion. But she was suddenly murdered by someone." Zhang Xiaohua was filled with hatred and said, "Do you know who did it?" When master left, his face was very peaceful. According to the hierarch, it should be someone close to him or someone he was familiar with who did it. However, until now we have not found any clues. We can't find the real culprit. Zhang Xiaohua sighed and raised his head to look at the towering lingering fragrance peak. He originally did not have a good impression of the fragrant religion. He felt that the fragrant religion was his enemy for destroying the Misty School. But when he looked at the Shirshin peak, he saw that the Misty School's disciples were all fine. They did not suffer any torture after coming to the fragrant religion. Unconsciously, his hatred for the fragrant religion lessened. He came to the lingering fragrance peak with malice, and wanted to take advantage of the opportunity to uproot the fragrant religion. But now, he knew that the Shirtai who saved his life in the past was an elder of the lingering fragrance peak. In the end, he owed the fragrant religion a debt of gratitude. Even if he remembered this debt of gratitude to the Shirtai, he could not bring himself to destroy the Shirtai's sect. Forget it. Perhaps the grudge between the fragrant religion and the Misty School can only be resolved by the two of them. Zhang Xiaohua had already made up his mind. However, he glanced at the dream, then at the floating clouds in the sky, and said, Nanjing Xian is my savior. She was killed by someone, making it impossible for me to repay her kindness. I swear that I will find the real culprit who killed Nanjing Xian, and kill him with one sword. If I can't do it, then I am willing to suffer the pain of 10,000 arrows piercing my heart. Xiaohua, Meng's small hand covered Zhang Xiaohua's mouth and said, Master's matter will be investigated by the lingering fragrance peak's disciples. Don't force yourself to be burdened. Meng's small hand felt the warmth of Zhang Xiaohua's mouth and nose. She immediately knew that she had lost her composure. She quickly withdrew her hand and hid it behind her back. Chapter 863. Where is the master's grave? I want to pay my respects. Zhang Xiaohua asked sorrowfully. Meng was a little embarrassed. Master's grave is at the back of the mountain of Lingxiang Peak. Only the female disciples of Mo Xiangong can enter there. You probably don't have the qualifications to enter. Zhang Xiaohua nodded. When there is a chance, tell me the location. I'll see if I can sneak in. Sneak in. Meng was very surprised. She then realized something. By the way, Xiaohua, why are you at Lingxiang Peak? Are you a disciple of the fragrance cult? Zhang Xiaohua thought for a moment and asked. What about you? Meng, after you separated from me, you followed Shirtai directly to Lingxiang Peak? Meng nodded and said, Yes, I didn't know this before. When I came to Lingxiang Peak, I knew it was the fragrance cult. Later, I gradually learned a lot of things in Jianghu. Then, you just said that you are a disciple of Mo Xiangong? Is that true? Meng smiled bitterly. It's true. However, the leader hasn't announced it yet, so I didn't wear any veil. Alas, you also know that I didn't know martial arts. I was brought to Lingxiang Peak by Master. Although he had been teaching me and I improved quickly, I was still far from the requirements of being a disciple of Mo Xiangong. Therefore, until Master died, I didn't directly say that I would be accepted as a disciple. Later, the leader saw that my filial piety was commendable, and allowed me to be a disciple of Master. Hearing this, Zhang Xiaohua's heart moved. Second brother is Shirtai's registered disciple. This Meng actually became second brother's senior sister. This world is really small. Then Meng said. But the leader has never let go. I don't know why he didn't let me be a disciple of Mo Xiangong. There was some worry between her eyebrows. She looked sideways at the bottom of the mountain, as if she had thought of something annoying. Zhang Xiaohua didn't pay attention to it. She just looked at Meng's side profile thoughtfully. After a while, Zhang Xiaohua patted her forehead and said, Meng, I was wondering why your side profile was so familiar. Have you been to the Yulan Canyon and followed Chen Chen? Senior sister Chen? Meng Ji was surprised. You know her? Then he admitted, yes, a few months ago during the Yulan Dusk refinement, I received special permission from Sir Hierarch to follow senior sister Chen Chen to the Yulan Grand Canyon. Thinking about it, it was really dangerous and I almost couldn't get out. As she spoke, she patted her chest with her hand. Zhang Xiaohua looked at her fair little hand and said with a smile, I happened to be there too. And I saw Chen Chen holding your hand and rushing out of the canyon. What? You went too? At that time that Huang Feng chased after me in a hurry. Could it be that you were right behind me? That's not right. As she spoke, her fair little hand moved from her chest to her mouth. She opened her eyes wide, covered her mouth with one hand, and pointed at Zhang Xiaohua with the other, and said in disbelief, You are the young man standing in the carriage? Then Meng looked up and down at Zhang Xiaohua's tall and thin figure. Yes, it was exactly like this. At that time I only saw the back of your head, and didn't see your face. That's right, I only saw half of your face. I only felt that you were familiar. And I was wondering which junior sister Chen Chen brought with him? that we could have met, but unfortunately, it was delayed for so long. Meng was a little melancholy. We finally met, it's better than not meeting, Zhang Xiaohua said with a smile. In the future, we can see each other every day. By the way, can the disciples of Emotian Palace go to the entire Lingxiang Peak? Meng murmured. That's not. Before she finished, she smiled and said, that's right, we can go anywhere. I can come here to find you every day. Oh, by the way, why are you here? I come to this hot spring every few days, and other than the disciples of Emotian Palace, the other disciples are forbidden to come here. How dare you break in? Are you a disciple of the Lingxiang sect or not? Meng had already asked Zhang Xiaohua several times how she came to Lingxiang Peak. Because Zhang Xiaohua had seen Meng's jealous face in the illusion of the refining heart cave, she knew that although it was different in reality, she could not tell the truth, so she did not give a direct answer. Now that she understood, she told Meng what happened after she parted with Meng at the ferry. She picked out the important things one by one, including the events on the deserted island. Of course, she also described it as a martial arts secret book. Zhang Xiaohua's story was very long, and she only finished when the sky was dark. Meng was fascinated by the story, and she stared at Zhang Xiaohua with her big black eyes without blinking. This made Zhang Xiaohua's vanity grow infinitely. Of course, Nie Qianyu's part had to be deleted. Zhang Xiaohua had already thought about it. What marriage contest? What son-in-law of Rejuvenation Valley? None of it was mentioned. She only said that she heard about the relationship between Rejuvenation Valley and the Lingxiang sect, so she joined Rejuvenation Valley and became a little medicine boy. Then she came to the Lingxiang sect to find her second brother. Perhaps Zhang Xiaohua's story was too complicated, or perhaps Meng was different from the ways of the world, or perhaps Meng trusted Zhang Xiaohua very much. Therefore, she didn't even ask. When she heard that Zhang Xiaohua's second brother was doing well, she was very happy. At the same time, she also expressed sympathy for Xia Zai's encounter and applauded for Zhao Jian's execution. However, when Zhang Xiaohua said that she hated Zhong Pei, Meng hesitated but still said, Xiaohua, even if you are stronger than Zhong Pei, you won't have the chance to take revenge. Why? Zhang Xiaohua was puzzled. Could it be that this bastard is full of evil and was struck by lightning? Meng was surprised. That's right, so Brother Xiaohua already knows. What? Zhang Xiaohua jumped up and grabbed Meng's hand, shouting. Could it be that this bastard was really struck by lightning? How can this be? I still want to use my sword to split him in half. Meng looked at Zhang Xiaohua's hand and struggled slightly. Of course it's true. A few days ago at noon, many of the disciples in Emotian Palace knew that Zhong Pei was struck by lightning in Emotian Palace. Hehe, Xiaohua, your martial arts are too high, and you still want to strike someone to death? You can't even go up Emotian Palace. Zhang Xiaohua shrugged and said disdainfully, What's so great about Emotian Palace? Wait till I get angry and charge up with my sword, I'll let you see. Meng pulled her hand out of Zhang Xiaohua's hand and lowered her head, covering her mouth. Stop bragging, however. Before she finished her sentence, she suddenly paused and pointed at Zhang Xiaohua's hand. Xiaohua, what are you wearing? When Zhang Xiaohua heard this, she was also surprised. She raised her left hand and looked at it strangely. It was the ring on her index finger. Zhang Xiaohua casually took off the ring and looked at it in the twilight. I don't know, I just picked it up on the mountain one day. It looked strange, so I kept it. Then he turned his eyes and glanced at the pearl hair clip on Meng's head. He smiled and said, That's right, Meng. I remember that when you gave me the pearl hair clip, I didn't have anything to give you. How about I give you this ring? As a return gift? Meng smiled. Didn't you give me your small sword? Could it be that you've lost it? No, the small sword was originally yours. I only took care of it. How could I dare to lose it? As she spoke, she took out Zhu Meng. And since it's still here, why did you give me a return gift? Moreover, it's been 5 years. Don't you think this return gift is too late? Meng said mischievously. This Zhang Xiaohua said, The small sword is suitable for me, and it will continue to follow me. As for this ring, although it's not worth much, it's also my thought. Although it's 5 years later, but in my heart it's no different from 5 years ago, so. Zhang Xiaohua's words were somewhat vague, but Meng heard it clearly. The red glow on her face had disappeared. Seeing that Meng didn't say anything, Zhang Xiaohua was a little anxious and asked, "How about it? Do you want it?" Meng still lowered her head and didn't say anything. This Zhang Xiaohua was very anxious. "Don't tell me you don't want it." Alas, Zhang Xiaohua was so clever in front of Nie Qianyu, Zhang Pinger, and even Chen Chen. Why was she so stupid when it came to Meng? You gave her something, and she had the nerve to say that she wanted it? Especially when a boy gave a girl a gift. Seeing that Zhang Xiaohua was anxious, Meng nodded slightly and said in a voice smaller than a mosquito. And although the voice was small, it was like the sound of nature in Zhang Xiaohua's ears. He grabbed Meng's left hand and held the ring for a long time. Then he said with a smile, "Meng, after looking at it for a long time, I think your ring finger is the best match for this ring. She'll take it." Without any explanation, he put the ring on Meng's ring finger. As soon as the ring was put on her finger, Meng immediately withdrew her left hand and hid it behind her back shyly. Zhang Xiaohua saw that Meng took the ring and was happy again. He took out a luminous pearl from his arms and said with a smile, "By the way, I also picked up a luminous pearl on the deserted island. I'll give it to you too." After he finished speaking, he stuffed it into Meng's hand. This time Meng didn't want it and said, "If you give me something worthless, then it's your intention. Of course, I'll be happy. But this luminous pearl, forget it," Zhang Xiaohua said anxiously. "I just want to give you everything I have." Yu Meng heard this and said with a smile, "I know your heart. But no matter how precious this luminous pearl is, how can it be compared to this ring? How can it be compared to this pearl hair clip?" Meng said these words in a hurry. It was too embarrassing. She looked at the sky and said, "Xiaohua, it's getting late. I have to go back. Tomorrow if I have time I'll go to the herb garden to find you. If I can't find you, I'll wait for you here." Zhang Xiaohua was overjoyed and kept cheering. He was afraid that Meng would be in trouble if she went back late, so he urged her to go back early. Dream looked at Zhang Xiaohua and smiled sweetly. With a leap, she used her qinggong to leap towards the top of the mountain. Zhang Xiaohua's gaze followed Dream's figure all the way up. Even though she knew that Dream's figure had disappeared, she was still reluctant to part with it and didn't want to take it back. Chapter 864. On Lingering Fragrance Peak, there was a simple and unadorned courtyard. It was completely different from the resplendent, beautiful, and high eaves palaces around it. There were not many disciples of Lingering Fragrance Peak here. Occasionally, the disciples who passed by were solemn. Not only did they look at the courtyard with longing in their eyes, even their footsteps were light. It was as if there was an extraordinary person living here. The door to the courtyard had not been opened for many years. Although no one came to clean it, the front and back of the door looked clean and tidy, no different from the other places. No one had come to the door for a long time, but now, there were 4 people. The one in front was the white-haired hierarch, followed by Peacock, Chun Chun, and Swift. Standing in front of this very ordinary courtyard, Nun Jingyi seemed to be very emotional. She just stood there quietly, looking at the door without saying a word. Peacock and the others stood 3 feet away from Nun Jingyi, respectfully standing in a triangular formation. They were also very excited. After a while, Nun Jingyi said in a low voice, "This place should be called the Training Courtyard, but for a long time, everyone called it the Heritage Palace to show respect. Actually, is the name that important? As long as we respect it in our hearts, isn't that more important than anything else?" Then, she turned around and said, "I'm sure you all know about this place and have been guessing for a long time. However, you can see what's inside, but you must not spread it. This is a strict order from the seniors in the sect." "Yes, hierarch." When Nun Jingyi heard this, she smiled again and said, 60 years ago, our cult was just like you. We followed behind the previous cult leader with restless hearts. We understand your feelings very well. There's no need to be too nervous. Maybe you all have a chance, or maybe there's only one, or maybe no one has a chance. However, there's no need to worry, everything is up to fate. Yes, you must remember that the immortal Tao pays particular attention to the word fate. Nothing can be forced. If you forget this, Even if you're lucky today, your future path won't be long. I'll remember. Alright, there's no need to be long-winded with you. You've all passed the test of the refining heart cave, so you should all be determined people. There's no point in talking too much. With that, Nun Jingyi made a series of gestures. Her movements were somewhat obscure, and she hit the courtyard door with a series of gestures. As the gestures were sent in, an invisible ripple gradually appeared in the open space in front of the courtyard door. Then, the ripple caused the entire courtyard to twist as if it was in water. The three people behind Nun Jingyi were astonished, and their eyes were filled with envy and curiosity. Needless to say, their hierarch's divine ability was definitely a technique of the immortal Tao, and her divine ability of the immortal Tao was obtained from this seemingly ordinary courtyard. Thinking about how they would have the same divine ability as their hierarch after entering the courtyard, they couldn't help but feel excited, just like the scene in front of them. After a series of gestures, Nun Jingyi seemed to be unable to withstand it. After a while, she took out a small token from her pocket. She seemed to be chanting something, and then she blew something on the token. With a hua sound, the token emitted a faint five-colored brilliance. Nun Jingyi's expression under the veil was even more like a Buddha. She waved her hand, and the token flew into the distorted scene in front of them. The moment the token was thrown in, it was like a drop of water falling into hot oil. The entire space trembled slightly, and after the trembling, the token disappeared. Even the distorted image stopped, and the scene before their eyes was still the same as what Peacock and the others saw. There were no changes at all. Nun Jingyi didn't dare to delay. She waved her hand and said weakly, "Let's go." Peacock whispered, "Hierarch, don't you need to rest?" There's no need. This isn't something that can be replenished by resting. You'll understand once you obtain the inheritance of the incense religion. He then walked to the door and pushed it open. With a chi-la sound, the door was pushed open. Peacock and the rest entered in a single file. When they saw the scene in the courtyard, they were even more surprised. There were no buildings in the courtyard. The entire courtyard was a huge hill, and in front of the hill was a cave that was taller than a person. Are you surprised? Abbess Jingyi smiled. This is the secret room of our fragrant religion. All the hierarchs, I can't say that. After the destruction of the immortal path, all the hierarchs received their inheritance in this secret room. Being ordinary did not mean that it was extraordinary. This seemingly ordinary little hill, this ordinary cave, actually contained the famous secret of the fragrant religion in the pugilistic world. Peacock and the rest were indeed very surprised. They came to Lingering Fragrance Peak when they were young, and after knowing the direction of their hard work, they set their sights on this mysterious place. Needless to say, 1,000 disciples would have 1,000 different imaginations. But out of these 1,000 imaginations, how many could have guessed that there was a small hill inside? At least looking at the three's expressions, they probably couldn't have guessed it. Nun Jingyi smiled again. You are the first disciples to pass the selection in 50 years of Lingering Fragrance Peak. You are also the first disciples to have the right to enter the secret room. Once you enter the secret room, you will all have the right to receive the inheritance. But only one of you will be able to become the hierarch. At this point, Nun Jingyi took note of the three's expressions. Fortunately, when they heard the word hierarch, their expressions didn't change. Nun Jingyi continued, "Actually, the position of hierarch has many benefits, such as more opportunities to cultivate. But most of the matters in the religion are distracting and can hinder one's cultivation. It's a mixed bag of advantages and disadvantages. But whether you're willing or not, the hierarch will be chosen from the three of you. Of course, the earliest disciple among you who obtained the inheritance will be the next sect leader," she added. "As for the other two disciples, if they also receive the inheritance, they will be the next elders. Even if they don't receive the inheritance, they will still be candidates for the next hierarch." "Yes, hierarch. All right, all of you can go in. This secret room is divided into two parts. The outer part is the immortal cultivation method of our incense cult, while the inner part is the true secret room. You must find a suitable cultivation method for yourself in the outer secret room and memorize it. You don't have to read the rest of the content first. Then, you can enter the true secret room and practice the cultivation method. If you can learn the cultivation method within the stipulated time limit, then you will be considered to have received the inheritance of our incense cult. So simple? Chen couldn't help but blurt out. Simple. Nanjingyi smiled. Chen, do you think the cultivation method of the incense cult is the same as the internal strength cultivation method you usually see? Well, although you have mastered the mortal heart cultivation method, to be honest, you only have a 30% chance of being able to master it in 18 days. Since Chen had started speaking, he couldn't hold back anymore. He asked, Hierarch, why is it so little? Nanjingyi nodded. That's still a good way to put it. You said that you borrowed the light of the mortal heart cultivation method. The mortal heart cultivation method is said to be the closest cultivation method to the heavenly Tao in our incense cult. Therefore, you and Peacock will be able to comprehend the immortal heart cultivation method with half the effort. As for Swift, I estimate that she doesn't even have a 10% chance. When Swift heard this, her face changed color. Nanjingyi was not surprised. I shouldn't have discouraged you like this before you entered the secret chamber, but I should remind you in advance. You must be fully prepared. When you enter the secret chamber, it's best to choose the cultivation method that suits you. There's no need to consider whether the name of the cultivation method sounds good or not. Perhaps it's a very powerful cultivation method that you can't even master. Even if you know it, what's the use? Also, I'll let you know in advance that the immortal heart cultivation method is very different from the martial arts you're practicing now. The immortal heart cultivation method is to draw the vitality of heaven and earth into the body. The immortal heart cultivation method is to sense the qi in the dantian. The immortal heart cultivation method is to cultivate the shanzhong point in the middle dantian, not the lower dantian of martial arts. Therefore, you must overcome the habit of practicing martial arts in the past, and move your cultivation method closer to the immortal heart cultivation method. Oh, so you're saying, Sir Sect Leader, didn't we practice in vain before? Chen exclaimed. Of course not. Nanjingyi waved her hand and said, that won't happen. Our seniors at Lingxiang Peak have already found a way to convert martial arts' internal energy into immortal heart qi thousands of years ago. As long as you practice the immortal heart cultivation method to a certain level, you can completely convert your internal energy into qi. This cultivation method, when you obtain the inheritance and become a person of the immortal heart cultivation method, I'll pass it on to you. Oh, that's good. Chen sighed in relief. All right, I won't say any more. You have 18 days. No matter if you obtain the inheritance or not, you must come out of the secret chamber. Yes, Sir Sect Leader. Nanjingyi stepped aside and said with a smile, go in. You must have received the fasting pills. If you haven't, I still have some. Don't come out because you're hungry and waste a great opportunity. Nanjingyi was clearly joking to ease their nervous mood. Sure enough, the three of them smiled and said, thank you for the reminder, Sir Sect Leader. Master gave it to us yesterday. The three of them bowed and entered the cave. Sure enough, there was a small study inside the cave. There was a small bookshelf inside, and there were dozens of thin booklets placed on top of it. Beside the bookshelf, there was a round wall that was about the height of a person and emitted a faint white light. Chapter 865. The small hill looked huge, but when Peacock and the rest entered, they realized that it was much bigger than they had imagined. However, when they entered, they were greeted by a rather large study room. The study room did not have many furnishings, and there was only a small bookshelf by the wall. There were only a dozen or so books on the bookshelf, and they were not very thick. Beside the bookshelf was a wall that emitted a faint white glow, and was about the height of a person. Furthermore, there were no tables or chairs in the study room. There were only a few praying mats on the floor. The three of them looked at each other and Swift tactfully said, Senior Peacock, Senior Chen, you two go first. As he spoke, he took 2 steps back. Chen was stunned and pushed Peacock with her shoulder. She smiled and said, Senior Peacock, you're taking advantage of us. You go first. Peacock shook her head and said, according to Sect Leader, The path to immortality is dependent on fate. It's not something that can be taken advantage of just by being in front. This bookshelf may be small, but it is enough for the three of us. You two don't have to be so polite. Let's go together. After she finished speaking, she pulled the two of them to the front. Chen did not think much of it, but Swift's eyes were filled with gratitude. Nun Xuezhen was different from Nun Jingfan. She was not an elder of the incense sect. It was only because of the many chores in the sect that many disciples knew about her. Swift's position in Emotian's palace was different from Peacock and Chen Chen's. They did not reveal much about themselves. This time, she was able to stand out and pass the selection. Even the sect leader was surprised. Although the sect leader had already said that the immortal Dao depended on luck, after all, whoever could look at the cultivation technique first would definitely be able to find the cultivation technique that was suitable for them first. This advantage was something that could be thought of even if one thought with their feet. Seeing that Peacock was so generous and did not take advantage of others, Swift immediately felt closer to her. The three of them walked to the front of the bookshelf and looked up and down. They were not in a hurry to choose. The three of them roughly skimmed through the booklets. Firmament Mental Cultivation Method, Star and Moon Mental Cultivation Method, Greenwood Mental Cultivation Method, Water Hazy Mental Cultivation Method. Strange names appeared one by one in front of them. However, all of these books had the same appearance, only the handwriting was different. After pondering for a long time, Peacock saw that the other two didn't want to take it. She stretched out her hand and took out a small booklet with the words, Ice Amplification Technique written on it. After Peacock took the mental cultivation technique, the other two also took out their own mental cultivation techniques. They were Blazing Heart Mental Cultivation Technique and Star Slashing Technique, respectively. Following which, the three of them each found a praying mat and sat down cross-legged. Then, they flipped open the book and began to read it carefully. On the mountain path of the distant Flame Hall, Zhang Xiaohua was happily walking. It was as if there was an endless amount of energy in his body. Even his mouth was humming a tune that was out of tune. Beside him, Zhang Ping'er was also beaming as she followed behind with a rosy face. Ever since Zhang Xiaohua met her dream, her heart was filled with sunshine. Everything was pleasing to her eyes. Even with Zhang Ping'er, she was more talkative. Naturally, Zhang Ping'er didn't know the reason. She only thought that her feelings were known by Zhang Xiaohua. Of course, Zhang Xiaohua was the one who secretly displayed their love for each other. Hence, Zhang Ping'er was happy with Zhang Xiaohua these few days. Happiness was written all over her face. She didn't look like the ice beauty from Fiery Palace at all. Seeing Zhang Xiaohua's energetic figure walking in front of her, Zhang Ping'er couldn't help but raise her eyebrows. She raised her voice and said, "Senior, don't walk so fast. Wait for me." I'm not fast. Zhang Xiaohua giggled and quickened her pace. "Senior, you're bullying me. You know that it's not appropriate to use your qinggong here. Yet you insist on walking so fast. I can't even catch up to you." Zhang Ping'er's tone was a little charming. "Then hurry up. I'll wait for you." Zhang Xiaohua waved her hand. It was as if there was a gust of wind. The red-crowned cranes that were already alert by the side of the road followed Zhang Xiaohua's gesture and soared into the sky. The loud chirps of the birds were exceptionally moving. Ha ha ha. Zhang Xiaohua laughed and turned a corner. Seeing that Zhang Xiaohua's figure had disappeared, Zhang Ping'er panicked. She stole a glance behind her and used her qinggong to chase after her. However, just as she turned the corner, she bumped into Zhang Xiaohua, who was standing there motionlessly. Zhang Ping'er couldn't stop herself and rushed onto Zhang Xiaohua's back. Just as she was about to crash into Zhang Xiaohua tilted her body slightly and wrapped her arms around Zhang Ping'er's waist. You're courting death." Zhang Ping'er's mouth and nose were filled with Zhang Xiaohua's scent. She looked at Zhang Xiaohua's brows in a daze and said, "You're scaring me by hiding here." Unexpectedly, Zhang Xiaohua didn't say a word. She put Zhang Ping'er down and looked ahead. Zhang Ping'er stood on the ground and felt a little reluctant. She tugged on Zhang Xiaohua's clothes and was about to say something when she heard a deep voice behind her. "Junior Zhang, you're really passionate." Ah. When Zhang Ping'er heard this, she almost screamed in shock. She raised her head and looked at Zhang Xiaohua in disbelief. Her face was as dark as water. She immediately turned around and saw a middle-aged man with a full forehead and a slightly dignified look on his face. At this moment, there was a hint of mockery in the man's eyes. Seeing this man, Zhang Pinger's face was immediately filled with nervousness. She retracted her hand from Zhang Xiaohua's clothes and said softly with a red face, "Senior brother Shi." Hearing Zhang Pinger call this man senior brother Shi, Zhang Xiaohua was even more shocked. In her impression, the fragrant religion respected the female disciples. As long as the male disciples saw a female disciple, they would call her senior sister, regardless of age. On Lingering Fragrance Peak it was even more so. Although Zhang Pinger was young, many male disciples from the distant fire hall called her senior sister Zhang. At this moment, this senior sister Zhang actually called this male disciple senior brother Shi instead of senior brother in private. This meant that this male disciple's identity was thought-provoking. Hence, Zhang Xiaohua unconsciously narrowed her eyes and looked at the middle-aged man who blocked her path when she turned around the mountain path. "You still remember that I am senior brother Shi?" The middle-aged man's eyes were filled with mockery as he stared at Zhang Xiaohua and said, "This is the new alchemy disciple from the distant fire hall, Ren Xiaoyao." When Zhang Xiaohua heard this, she immediately smiled and cupped her hands. "This one is indeed Ren Xiaoyao. I wonder if senior brother Shi?" The middle-aged man waved his hand and said arrogantly, "You are just a small alchemy disciple. You are not worthy to call me senior brother." Zhang Xiaohua looked at this guy and the smile on her face didn't change. She cupped her hands and said, "Up to you. Anyway, I am just a small alchemy disciple. I won't be able to see senior brother Shi. It doesn't matter if I don't call you senior brother Shi." Senior brother Shi laughed. "Little brat, you are quite arrogant. No wonder Zhang Pinger likes you." When Zhang Pinger heard this, her face turned even redder. She took half a step forward and stood in front of Zhang Xiaohua. She said, "Senior brother Shi, senior. Junior brother Ren doesn't know anything. He doesn't know the rules of Lingering Fragrance Peak. Senior brother, if you have something to say, you should tell me." Senior brother Shi raised his head and said proudly, "Since I am here, I naturally have something to say to you." Then he stared at the two of them and asked, "The two of you are so intimate now. I wonder what my third junior brother thinks." "Third junior brother?" Zhang Xiaohua was stunned and looked at Zhang Pinger. Zhang Pinger didn't need to turn her head to know Zhang Xiaohua's reaction. She immediately argued, "Senior brother Shi, don't talk nonsense. I have nothing to do with senior brother you." "What?" Senior brother Shi glanced at her and said, "Don't tell me that my third junior brother went to the distant fire hall a few months ago for no reason." Zhang Pinger's face was pale. She looked at Zhang Xiaohua nervously and explained to senior brother Shi and Zhang Xiaohua, "During that period of time, my master was seriously ill. I was in a bad mood. Senior brother you did come over to comfort me. But ever since master recovered, I haven't contacted senior brother you." "Senior brother you?" When Zhang Xiaohua heard this, she knew who it was. Wasn't he the unlucky guy who died in her hands? Of course, Zhang Xiaohua also knew the purpose of senior brother Shi's visit. Seeing that Zhang Xiaohua didn't say anything, Zhang Pinger anxiously said, And ever since junior brother Ren came to the distant fire hall, I haven't seen senior brother Yu's shadow." Is that so?" Senior brother Shi was stunned. "You really haven't seen him all this time?" Zhang Pinger nodded. "That's right. I've been with junior brother Ren these few days. If you don't believe me, you can ask him." Senior brother Shi smiled. "That's exactly what I wanted to ask. Ren Xiaoyao, do you remember the Yu Zhuochuan who wanted to buy the odd man from you on the way to Lingering Fragrance Peak?" "Senior brother Yu?" Zhang Xiaohua suddenly said. I remember. So the senior brother you guys talked about for a long time is the handsome senior brother Yu. Of course I remember. I just don't know. Senior brother Shi, are you here to ask about our senior brother Yu?" "Yes, it's good that you know." Senior brother Shi nodded. "Ren Xiaoyao, after you came to Lingering Fragrance Peak, have you seen my junior brother Yu? For example, in the distant fire hall, in the Li Chui Valley, or in the medicine garden?" Senior brother Shi's words were clear, but Zhang Xiaohua had a confused face. She shook her head and said, I've only seen senior brother Yu outside of Lingering Fragrance Peak. When I came to Lingering Fragrance Peak, I've never seen him. That's right, I only went to Li Chui Valley to test my martial arts. I only went in once. How could I see senior brother Yu? Could it be that senior brother Yu also wanted to test his martial arts? Li Chui Valley? Zhang Ping'er wasn't stupid and immediately became alert. She turned her head to look at Zhang Xiaohua. However, she immediately thought that if Yu Zhuochuan entered Li Chui Valley, how could Zhang Xiaohua come out? She couldn't help but feel a little scared. Well, since you haven't seen him before, then forget it. That senior brother Shi obviously didn't have anything that could be used against him. He probably heard the stories of others and felt that it was related to Zhang Xiaohua, so he came to ask. Of course, if I know that something has happened to junior brother Yu, or if it has anything to do with you, don't blame me for not showing mercy. When Zhang Ping'er heard this, she immediately took half a step forward. Senior brother Shi didn't even look at them. His feet didn't seem to exert much strength as he floated up and headed straight for the top of the mountain. Chapter 866. After Senior Shi left, Zhang Xiaohua didn't say anything and continued to walk forward. She lowered her head as she walked as if she was thinking about something. Zhang Ping'er carefully followed behind her. She held onto the corner of her palace dress and didn't dare to say anything. After walking for a while, Zhang Xiaohua slowed down her footsteps and asked, Junior sister, who is this Senior Shi? Hearing Zhang Xiaohua's question, Zhang Ping'er's face lit up with joy. She immediately caught up and said anxiously, Senior brother, you have to believe me. I have nothing to do with that Yu Zhuochuan. Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, I know. I just want to know who this Senior Shi is. Senior Shi? Zhang Ping'er relaxed and forced a smile. Senior Shi is called Shi Mujuan. He is the eldest disciple of Rui Jin Hall's Grand Elder Jinggang. Yu Zhuochuan is Jinggang's third disciple. Senior brother, you have to believe me. I really have nothing to do with Yu Zhuochuan. Huh. Zhang Xiaohua nodded. I know. However, why did you call Shi Mujuan senior brother? Isn't Lingering Fragrance Peak female disciples the most respected? Senior brother, you don't know. Zhang Ping'er explained. Generally speaking, female disciples should be respected on Lingxiang Peak, but this Jinggang Shirtai is a little different. She is the senior sister of Hierarch Darren. Moreover, it is said that she fell behind Hierarch Darren by a small margin and was unable to take charge of the Lingxiang cult. Therefore, she took a step back and took the important position of Great Elder. Moreover, Grand Elder Jinggang is in charge of Rui Jin Hall. This Rui Jin Hall is responsible for the safety of Lingering Fragrance Peak. When senior brother first came to Lingering Fragrance Peak, he met a few disciples who were guarding the peak. Therefore, Rui Jin Hall is considered the strongest hall on Lingering Fragrance Peak. Most of the disciples in Rui Jin Hall were male. Jinggang Shirtai's 6 disciples were also mostly male. Especially Shi Mujuan. He was her eldest disciple. His martial arts were even more powerful than the senior sisters in Mo Xian's palace. Due to Great Elder Jinggang's special identity, other than the female disciples of Mo Xian Palace, the disciples of the other palaces all have to address the 6 disciples of Jinggang Shirtai as senior martial brothers. Oh. Zhang Xiaohua understood and asked casually, what about Yu Zhuochuan? Senior brother Yu? Zhang Ping'er's face was somewhat red as she said, Senior brother Yu's martial arts are also first-rate, and his personality is also outstanding, so he is deeply liked by Jinggang Shirtai. Since young, he has always been under her protection, so in the various halls of Lingering Fragrance Peak, there are basically no disciples who dare to go against him. That's right, senior brother. How did you meet senior brother Yu on your way here? Zhang Xiaohua smiled and told him about her encounter with Yu Zhuochuan. Zhang Ping'er was very anxious when she heard this. Senior brother, you should have given him the David's deer. He is a very petty person. He might cause trouble for you in the future. Oh, that's right, that senior martial brother you didn't make trouble for you in Li Chui Valley, did he? He is a disciple of Ruijin Palace, and there are no restrictions on him entering and leaving Lichuan Valley. Zhang Xiaohua curled his lips and said secretly, just a dead man, and he dares to cause trouble for this young master? However, he said perfunctorily, AI, how would I know who he is? Huan Huan has been with me for so many years. How can I bear to give her to others? What should I do? Zhang Ping'er was a little embarrassed. She gritted her teeth and said, Senior Marshal Brother, I will go to Ruijin Palace in 2 days and tell Senior Brother you. Oh, Senior Marshal Brother, don't look at me. I really have nothing to do with Senior Brother you. Zhang Ping'er had already explained to Zhang Xiaohua 3 times in a row. Zhang Xiaohua was about to comfort her, but when she looked up, she unconsciously smiled and shouted, Meng, you are here? You. Why aren't you waiting for me in the medicinal garden? Zhang Ping'er was looking at Zhang Xiaohua anxiously. How could she pay attention to the people and things in front of her? When Zhang Xiaohua ignored her and walked away quickly, she came to her senses. When she saw Meng standing in front of the medicinal garden with a strange expression on her face, she immediately felt as if she had fallen into an ice cave. Her face was pale without any color, and her hands and feet were weak. Even she didn't know how she moved to the entrance of the medicinal garden. Zhang Xiaohua cheerfully walked to the door and called out intimately, Meng, you came so early today. Meng's expression was very complicated. She looked at Zhang Xiaohua and was about to speak, but Zhang Ping'er, who was behind her, stepped forward with trembling lips and saluted. Disciple Zhang Ping'er greets senior sister Xia. Meng was also surprised and smiled. Zhang Ping'er? You know me? Zhang Ping'er smiled bitterly. You are a disciple of Mo Nun Palace and Shirtai's disciple. How can I not know you? However, Zhang Ping'er still didn't give up and asked, Senior sister Xia, I wonder, how do you know Junior Brother Ren? Junior Brother Ren? Meng smiled and remembered what Zhang Xiaohua said a few days ago. She said, Junior Brother Ren and I are old friends. Zhang Xiaohua also said happily, Senior sister Zhang, I have been looking for Senior sister Xia for many years, but I never thought that she would be at Lingxiang Peak. This is all thanks to you. If you didn't bring me from Pill Repository Hall to Distant Flame Hall, I wouldn't have met her here. As he spoke, Zhang Xiaohua tugged on Meng's sleeve and said, Senior sister Xia, and I thank you for your help. Zhang Ping'er's face was originally pale, but now it was even paler. There were faint tears in her eyes, but she held them back and shook her head. It's nothing. Senior brother and senior sister Xia are a match made in heaven. Even if it wasn't for me, you two would still meet under the arrangement of heaven. After saying that, a wave of sadness surged in her chest. The feeling of making a wedding dress for someone else filled her mind. Zhang Ping'er couldn't help but cry. This mountain wind is really strong. Zhang Ping'er tried to cover it up and was about to leave. There are still many things in the alchemy room. Senior sister Xia, stay with senior brother for a while. I will go first. After seeing Zhang Ping'er's appearance in his dream, how could he not know what she was thinking? She immediately pulled her hand and said, Junior sister Zhang, you're overthinking it. Little Ren Xiaoyao and I are just old acquaintances. Although I remember him, how could we have such a relationship like you're saying? I look at junior sister apprentice Zhang's fair face and slim figure. That's Ren Xiaoyao's. Don't you think so? Ren Xiaoyao? Zhang Xiaohua was stunned. He didn't understand why Meng said that. He didn't know whether to nod or shake his head. It was extremely awkward. When Zhang Ping'er heard this, a glimmer of hope immediately rose in her heart. She couldn't move her feet no matter what. At this time, there were some noisy voices on the mountain path. Zhang Ping'er quickly said, Senior sister Xia, I still have things to do in the alchemy room. I will leave first. After saying that, she bowed and raised her head to look at Zhang Xiaohua with hidden bitterness. Then she hurriedly left. Meng didn't want anyone to see her, so he smiled and entered the herb garden. Zhang Xiaohua followed him and entered. He asked puzzledly, Meng, why did you say that? I was worried that I wouldn't have a chance to explain it to senior sister Zhang. Now that you said that, won't she misunderstand? Meng shook his head and said with a smile, She is an innocent girl who is infatuated with you. When you mentioned her a few days ago, I felt that something was wrong. Now that I see it, it is indeed so. She has put in so much effort. How can you let her down? Zhang Xiaohua panicked and was about to explain. Meng asked again, why did she Mujuan look for you? Shi Mujuan? Zhang Xiaohua was shocked. You know him too? Yes, I know him. He is the eldest disciple of the famous great elder Jing Gang. There aren't many people in the entire lingering fragrance peak who don't know him. Hee, this young master is one of them. Stop talking nonsense. Why did he look for you? Nothing much. His third junior brother disappeared. He came to ask me and even threatened me. If it has anything to do with me, he will teach me a lesson. Meng's face turned pale when he heard that. He said unnaturally, isn't his third junior brother Yujuan? Why did he look for you? Zhang Xiaohua explained everything in detail. In the end, she said, not only did this guy pester Zhang Pinger, he even wanted to snatch my David's deer. One look and you can tell that he is not a good person. Who knows where he is now? Who knows, he might have already killed someone. How is that possible? They are all under the protection of Great Elder Jing Gang. Even if Lord Cult Leader wants to teach them a lesson, he will have to think twice. Zhang Xiaohua was surprised. Doesn't the lingering fragrance cult have rules? The first, second, and third rule are all extremely powerful. Aren't they afraid? Meng snorted and said disdainfully, that's only for ordinary disciples. As the saying goes, a doctor can't be punished. Since ancient times, there has been a group of so-called privileged classes in this world. They are never bound by any rules. Although there are many rules and strict rules, they are ineffective against them. Zhang Xiaohua came to a realization and snorted. Lend me the 3-foot cold blade to sweep away all the thieves in the world. If they offend me, I will directly take their lives. Clap, clap, clap. Meng clapped and praised. A real man should be like this. She then said worriedly, it's just that your martial arts are not good enough. Compared to them, the difference is too big. Even if they can pinch you to death with their little finger, you still have to be careful. Don't lose your life because of some unimportant things. If you do, your parents will be very sad. Zhang Xiaohua was a little puzzled when he heard this. Was this encouragement or a blow to him? Happy times were always short. Zhang Xiaohua felt that she was dreaming. The days were always short. Before she could do anything, it was already dark. During this day, Zhang Pinger, who usually came to harass Zhang Xiaohua, did not show up. Zhang Xiaohua felt a little uneasy. Sometimes, when Meng talked about Zhang Pinger in front of Zhang Xiaohua, she seemed to be full of admiration. Zhang Xiaohua didn't know if it was to show her generosity or something else, but she would always say things that Zhang Xiaohua didn't understand. When Zhang Xiaohua asked her about it, Meng would just smile and look at him quietly. It was as if the more she looked at him, the less he looked at her. This made Zhang Xiaohua very depressed. She could only explain her relationship with Zhang Pinger, just like how Zhang Pinger explained her relationship with Yujuan earlier. Just like that, the day passed by happily. Chapter 867. Ever since Zhang Pinger met the dream, she no longer went to find Zhang Xiaohua. Occasionally, when she met Zhang Xiaohua, she would stay far away. She only peeked at him and did not say a word. Zhang Xiaohua wanted to say something to her, but he thought that some things would only get messier, so he ignored her. He believed that Zhang Pinger was the same as Nie Qinyu. One day, she would understand. If things were so simple, Zhang Xiaohua would not be troubled. Ever since the dream met Zhang Pinger, she stayed with Zhang Xiaohua in the herb garden for an entire day. She only returned to Emotian Palace when the sky turned dark. She was nowhere to be seen for the next few days. Zhang Xiaohua thought that something had happened to the dream at first, so he did not care. However, after waiting for more than 10 days, he still did not see her. He could not help but feel anxious. He went to the hot spring several times to wait for the dream, but he did not see her. Instead, he met many female disciples of Emotian Palace bathing. However, Zhang Xiaohua's heart was filled with the dream. How could he care about these cheap spring scenery? He only scanned with his divine sense. When he saw that it was not a dream, he immediately left. In these 10 days, Zhang Xiaohua had never been so troubled. He had never been so anxious. This was not the demeanor of an immortal cultivator. He tried to calm down and comprehend the heavenly Tao and the talismans. However, as soon as he sat down, the shadow of the dream would appear in front of him. His heart was filled with sorrow. He only wanted to know what the dream was doing at this time. He wanted to know why she did not come to see him. He could only cultivate the fist of the North Star as usual. When he was extremely frustrated, he would practice it again and again. Of course, he did not care about the entire herb garden. He also ignored the spells recorded in the small book. Fortunately, the herbs were planted well, and there were no problems. On this day, Zhang Xiaohua was pacing back and forth in the garden. She wondered if she should take the risk and break through some restrictions to go from Lihua Hall to Emotian Palace to see what had happened in her dream. Suddenly, he heard someone shouting from outside the courtyard. Junior brother Ren, a disciple of Emotian Palace, is looking for you. Zhang Xiaohua was overjoyed. He immediately used his movement technique and came out. Sure enough, there was Zhang Pinger and another disciple with a white veil. When Zhang Pinger saw Zhang Xiaohua, she lowered her head and said, "Senior Martial Sister, this is Ren Xiaorao. Martial Sister, do you have something to say to him?" After he finished speaking, he stepped aside respectfully and didn't even look at Zhang Xiaohua. Zhang Xiaohua scanned with his divine sense and knew that he didn't know this disciple from Emotian Gong. He asked curiously, "Senior Sister, why are you looking for me?" The female disciple didn't say anything. Instead, she looked Zhang Xiaohua up and down. She snorted and said, "I thought you were some kind of peerless character, but you're just an ordinary disciple who can't be any more ordinary. You're just a toad who wants to eat swan meat. Why don't you think about your status? How dare you have ideas about Senior Sister Zixia?" Zhang Xiaohua was originally angry, but when he heard Zixia, he immediately became anxious. "Zixia, Senior Martial Sister, what happened to her? Why haven't I seen her in so many days?" "Senior Martial Sister Zixia?" The disciple sneered. "Is that something you can call her? Why don't you get some water and use it as a mirror to look at yourself? You are too inferior compared to him. How can you be worthy of Senior Martial Sister Zixia?" Zhang Xiaohua's eyes narrowed. He was about to explode in anger. Zhang Pinger, who was beside him, had already noticed. She pulled him back and said, "Senior, Junior brother Ren, why is this Senior Martial Sister looking for you?" Zhang Xiaohua took a deep breath and said, "Senior Martial Sister, please enlighten me." The female disciple looked at Zhang Xiaohua with disdain and said coldly, "Senior Sister Zixia asked me to pass on a message to you. She knows everything about you. Since your heart already belongs to someone else, and she's waiting for you, you shouldn't do anything to hurt others and make them sad. Your fate with her has come to an end. From now on, there are no more dreams in this world, only Zixia. You shouldn't go looking for her." As soon as this sentence came out, Zhang Xiaohua was immediately stunned on the spot. It was as if he had been struck by lightning, and was about to be struck by lightning. Zhang Pinger, who was at the side, was shocked, but at the same time, a feeling of gratitude rose in her heart. Wasn't the others mentioned by Zixia her? At this moment, Zhang Xiaohua's heart was in a mess. Oh no, Meng knows about me and Nye Qinyu. I knew it. The things in the illusion were not without reason. In these 10 days, Meng must have asked about my past. Why didn't I tell her clearly? If I told her clearly, perhaps she would forgive me. After all, I had no choice but to do this because I wanted to find second brother. Sai, Senior Martial Uncle Yang Yaoyang, why are you so talkative? Seeing that Zhang Xiaohua didn't say anything, the female disciple became even more proud. She waved her hand and said, "All right, I have already told you what Senior Martial Sister Zixia asked me to tell you. Senior Martial Sister Zixia didn't ask you to reply to her, so you don't have to say anything. Think about your own position, and do your own things well. If you gain the favor of Deputy Hall Master Yin, she might give you some benefits. Don't bite off more than you can chew and do things that are beyond your ability." Then she turned around and was about to leave. Zhang Xiaohua immediately called out, "Senior Martial Sister, where is Zixia now?" Where else can she be? The female disciple smiled and said, Of course she is in Emotian Palace at the top of Lingering Fragrance Peak. Then she smiled mysteriously and said, However, there is another news that I think I should tell you. Rui Jinhal's great elder Jingang's eldest disciple has already formally proposed marriage to Lord Sect Leader. The betrothal gifts have already been sent to Emotian Palace, waiting for senior martial sister Zixia to nod her head. If nothing goes wrong, the entire Lingering Fragrance Peak will be able to drink their wedding wine. Ah? Zhang Xiaohua fell into an ice cave. How is that possible? Meng, how could she? At this moment, Zhang Xiaohua's heart was in a mess. It was as if the sky was falling and the earth was caving in. Her heart was also beating wildly. She looked at the surrounding scene with an unreal feeling. How could this be? How could it not be? The female disciple smiled and said, If she didn't choose senior martial brother could it be that she would choose you, the little medicine boy? Zhang Xiaohua still shook her head. No, Meng must be angry with me. I should tell her. If she knows the truth, she will definitely forgive me. The truth? The female disciple disdained. Senior martial sister Zixia didn't let me pass the message. If you have the ability, go tell her yourself. Ha ha ha. Then she contemptuously said, I think your waste token can't go to Lingering Fragrance Peak. Then she looked at Zhang Xiaohua's clenched fist and mocked. Don't tell me you want to go to Lingering Fragrance Peak? Ha ha ha. Go to Lingering Fragrance Peak. Go to Lingering Fragrance Peak. Zhang Xiaohua's eyes lit up. She thought of what she said to Meng. If you are angry with me or refuse to see me, then even if I have to hold a long sword, I will go to Lingering Fragrance Peak to see you. Ha 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 ha. Zhang Xiaohua suddenly looked up to the sky and laughed. Isn't it just going to Lingering Fragrance Peak? Then I will show you. When Zhang Ping'er heard this, she became anxious. She hugged Zhang Xiaohua and said, Senior martial brother, don't say such crazy things. Then she turned to the female disciple and said, Senior martial sister, please don't blame him. Senior martial brother was angry and spoke nonsense. Don't take it seriously. When the female disciple heard this, she immediately laughed and said, You actually called him senior martial brother. Ha ha ha, I know what senior martial sister Zixia means. A pair of dogs. After she finished speaking, she used her qinggong and rose from the ground. Zhang Ping'er's warm body protected Zhang Xiaohua, making it difficult for Zhang Xiaohua. How could Zhang Ping'er care? She only said, Senior martial brother, senior martial sister Zixia probably misunderstood us. Wait a moment. I will go find master and ask for a token. I will go to Emotian Palace and explain everything to senior martial sister Zixia. Zhang Xiaohua smiled bitterly and said, Junior martial sister, let go of your hand. Only then did Zhang Ping'er come to her senses and quickly let go of Zhang Xiaohua's hand. Her face was flushed red. When Zhang Ping'er let go, Zhang Xiaohua immediately rose from the ground and used the ethereal steps to run away. As he ran, he laughed and said, Isn't it just Lingering Fragrance Peak? Today, this young master will use his sword to fight his way up Lingering Fragrance Peak. I want to see if this Lingering Fragrance Peak is a dragon's lair or a tiger's den. Oh no. Zhang Ping'er was shocked. She immediately flew up and chased after Zhang Xiaohua. However, Zhang Xiaohua's qinggong was so powerful that he disappeared without a trace in a moment. Zhang Ping'er's face was filled with anxiety. She didn't know what to do. Suddenly, her face lit up with joy. She changed her direction and went in another direction. After a short while, Zhang Ping'er arrived at a small courtyard. Without waiting for her to land, she shouted, Eldest senior sister, eldest senior sister? The voice in the courtyard replied, Is it Ping'er? I am here. Why are you so flustered? Zhang Ping'er rushed in and grabbed Han Zhuoqi, who was sitting cross-legged on the praying mat. She said anxiously, Senior martial sister, quick, quick. Ren Xiaoyao is going to rush to Lingering Fragrance Peak. Han Zhuoqi couldn't believe her ears. She asked curiously, Rush? Lingering Fragrance Peak? Who? Ren Xiaoyao? It's your... How is this possible? Why is he going to rush to Lingering Fragrance Peak? Does he have the ability to do so? Zhang Ping'er didn't have time to explain. She pulled Han Zhuqi and rushed out. Senior Marshal Sister, I beg you. Hurry up and help me. When you stop Ren Xiaorao, you can ask me to do anything. Ah? He is really going to rush to Lingering Fragrance Peak. This Ren Xiaorao doesn't want to live anymore? Han Zhuqi was somewhat convinced. She quickly exerted strength in her legs and ran towards the main mountain path of Lingering Fragrance Peak. Ping, or have you told Master about this? I wouldn't dare. If Master were to find out that Ren Xiaorao hadn't left yet, she would have killed him with a single palm strike. Let's wait for eldest senior sister to capture him before slowly apologizing to Master. Zhang Pinger said with a bitter smile. Where is he? Zhang Pinger's eyes were naturally sharp when it came to her sweetheart. From afar, she could see a tall and skinny figure. It was Fetus, who held a long sword in his hand as he walked steadily towards the main mountain path of Lingering Fragrance Peak. Chapter 868. Zhang Pinger's eyes were sharp. She had already spotted a tall and skinny figure in the distance. She was holding a long sword and walking towards the main mountain path of Lingering Fragrance Peak. Although she couldn't see clearly, Zhang Pinger knew that it was the furious Zhang Xiaohua. Over there. Zhang Pinger shouted and walked towards Zhang Xiaohua. However, before she could get up, she was pulled back by Han Zhuqi. Senior sister, what are you doing? Let's hurry up and stop Ren Xiaoyao. Don't let him get into trouble. Zhang Pinger was puzzled. Along the way, Han Zhuqi had already asked Zhang Pinger about what happened. She glared at Zhang Pinger and said, 7th junior sister, from what you said, Ren Xiaoyao is also a heartless person. When he saw senior sister Zixia, he fell in love with her. He might have saved you because you were a disciple of Lingering Fragrance Peak. Now that he saw senior sister Zixia, who has a higher status, he abandoned you. Why are you still chasing after him? Just let him go. Even if he is killed by a disciple of Ruijin Hall, he deserves it. Zhang Pinger didn't expect her eldest senior sister to have such thoughts. She immediately pulled her sleeve and said, Eldest senior sister, I have never asked you for anything. No matter what, you must help me stop Ren Xiaoyao. I know what you said is reasonable, but Ren Xiaoyao is definitely not that kind of person. Moreover, looking at senior sister Zixia, she is indeed an old acquaintance of his. Yes, Ren Xiaoyao even knows senior sister Zixia's previous name. If he is a flatterer, how can he know so much after coming to distant Flame Hall for a few days? He has already abandoned you. Why are you still unwilling to give up? Eldest senior sister Zhang Pinger looked at Zhang Xiaohua's receding figure and said anxiously, Let's talk as we walk. As she spoke, she tugged on Han Zhuqi's sleeve and stood up. She continued, I didn't make it clear to Ren Xiaoyao. Perhaps he still doesn't know my intentions. He can't blame anyone else. Even if I give up on him now, I can't just watch him jump into the fire pit. He had just arrived at Lingering Fragrance Peak. How could he know that barging into Lingering Fragrance Peak was a capital offense? No matter how high his martial arts were, it was impossible for him to challenge the entire Ruijin Palace alone. I just want to stop him, let him calm down, and save his life. Han Zhuqi followed Zhang Pinger to catch up with Zhang Xiaohua, and she couldn't help but sigh. Pinger, from what senior marshal sister Zixia said, she knows that you have feelings for Zhang Xiaohua, and she intends to help you. You don't tell me you don't want to go with the flow? Zhang Pinger looked at Zhang Xiaohua, who was gradually getting closer, and sighed. Nothing forcibly done will be sweet. Ren Xiaoyao's heart is not with me, so why should I force him? Didn't you see how he could risk his life for senior marshal sister Zixia and barge into Lingering Fragrance Peak? If he treats me like this, even if he wants me to die immediately, I would be willing to do so. Unfortunately, that is only for the sake of others. She then forced a smile and said, I'll wait for senior marshal's sister to capture him. Then I'll immediately ask for master's token and go to Emotian Palace to find senior marshal sister Zixia. I'll tell her about Ren Xiaoyao's feelings for her. It's just my wishful thinking. Let senior marshal sister Zixia get rid of the misunderstanding. Let them lovers finally get married. TSK. Han Zhuqi bared her teeth and said, What a loyal and infatuated woman. Even if you risk yourself, you'll help others. You didn't think about the possibility of Ren Xiaoyao and Senior Marshal Sister Zixia being together? Zhang Ping'er was also sad. I know this, but when I see Ren Xiaoyao's unhappy expression, I feel very uncomfortable. If I don't do something for him, I will feel very uneasy. You've said so much. Does he know? Han Zhuqi pointed at Zhang Xiaohua and asked. Whether he knows or not, I still have such thoughts. Whether he stays or not, I will do the same. Han Zhuqi shook her head slightly and shouted. Ren Xiaoyao, stop right there. When Zhang Xiaohua heard this, she turned her head slightly and frowned. She ignored her and continued to walk forward. How dare you? Han Zhuqi was angry. As a disciple of Distant Fire Hall, you actually didn't stop when your senior martial sister called you? Aren't you afraid of being punished by the hall's rules? Zhang Xiaohua saw the anxious Zhang Ping'er beside Han Zhuqi and knew Han Zhuqi's background. She only said coldly, Senior Martial Sister Han is chasing after me. She definitely wants to stop me. I appreciate your kindness and thank you for your concern. Then her tone changed. However, today's matter will not end well. I must break into Lingering Fragrance Peak. Senior Martial Sister, please give way. Weapons have no eyes. If you hurt me, I will feel guilty. Han Zhuqi was so angry that she laughed. Who do you think you are? I know you saved Ping'er many times in Yulong Grand Canyon, but this is Lingering Fragrance Peak. It's not a place for you to behave atrociously. Forget it, forget it. On account of Ping'er's pleading, I will stop you. After she finished speaking, Han Zhuqi took out a red ribbon and attacked Zhang Xiaohua's back. Just as the ribbon left her hand, a ding-ling-ling sound was heard. There were 2 small silver bells attached to the ribbon. These small bells looked very ordinary, but when the ding-ling-ling sound reached Zhang Xiaohua's ears, it made her feel dizzy. Zhang Xiaohua frowned and used God's guidance. That feeling of uneasiness immediately disappeared. Han Zhuqi saw the confusion in Zhang Xiaohua's eyes, but it disappeared in a flash. She immediately laughed and said, Ren Xiaoyao, you are indeed skilled. You actually dodged this soul-enchanting bell. Before she finished speaking, the silver bells on the ribbon attacked. It was the main acupuncture point on Zhang Xiaohua's back. Seeing that it was about to hit, Zhang Xiaohua didn't even turn her head, and only pushed the Great Wisdom Sword back. Pa! The silver bells really hit the sword. The Great Wisdom Sword didn't move at all, but the silver bells flew back. Strange, what sword is this? After hitting the silver bells, Zhang Xiaohua didn't hesitate and quickly walked forward. Stop! Han Zhuqi was even angrier. She used her qinggong and blocked in front of Zhang Xiaohua. She smiled and said, Junior brother Ren, if you want to barge into Lingering Fragrance Peak, then you have to pass through me first. Senior Sister Han, why do you have to do this? I know you have good intentions, but I also don't want to hurt Senior Sister. Senior Sister should tactfully step aside. I will definitely remember your great kindness in the future. Zhang Ping'er, who was at the side, said, Senior brother, don't go. I know your martial arts are high, but barging into Lingering Fragrance Peak is a capital offense. How can you be the opponent of so many disciples of Ruijin Palace? Zhang Xiaohua looked at Zhang Ping'er. She didn't know what to say to this infatuated girl. She only shook her head and said, If I don't see the dream and clear up this misunderstanding, how can my heart be at ease? If I can't see the dream in the future, what else can I miss in this world? After saying that, she walked towards Han Zhuqi. Han Zhuqi also didn't hold back. She waved her hand and the red ribbons attacked Zhang Xiaohua's main acupuncture points like a spirit snake. Zhang Xiaohua waved her heavy sword and countered every move. Every time the silver bells were hit, they flew back and rang out. This mountain path was the only path from the distant fire hall to the main mountain path of the Lingering Fragrance Peak. The fight between the two of them had already attracted the attention of many disciples from the distant fire hall. Some of the bolder ones even walked a short distance away to secretly watch. Han Zhuqi's red ribbon's attack was ineffective. She unconsciously felt a little embarrassed and angry. She waved the red ribbons and it spread out like a tornado, rolling towards Zhang Xiaohua. Zhang Xiaohua didn't dodge. She only waited for the ribbons to come close. She raised the heavy sword in her hand and blocked the front of the ribbons. It was like a whirlwind, and also like a spirit snake wrapping around her body. The entire heavy sword was tightly wrapped. The red ribbons were originally meant to wrap around Zhang Xiaohua, but unexpectedly, it was broken by Zhang Xiaohua and only wrapped around her weapon. Han Zhuoqi was slightly stunned. Just as she was about to retrieve the ribbons, she heard Zhang Xiaohua say softly, "Senior Han, I'm sorry to offend you." Before she could finish her sentence, Han Zhuoqi felt a huge force coming from her hand. Before the internal energy in her meridians could react, the red ribbons flew out of her hand and landed in Zhang Xiaohua's hand. Han Zhuoqi was shocked. The red ribbons were her personal weapon. It had always been soft and was effective against swords and sabers. No one had ever taken it away from her before. Zhang Xiaohua shook her heavy sword and the red ribbons obediently fell to the ground. Zhang Xiaohua caught it with her hand and didn't return it to Han Zhuoqi. She loosened her hand, and it landed on the grass beside the mountain path. Soon after, Zhang Xiaohua looked deeply at Han Zhuoqi and walked past her. Han Zhuoqi stared at Zhang Xiaohua. Her heart was in turmoil. Only when Zhang Xiaohua brushed past her did she regain her senses. She clenched her fist and shouted, "Ren Xiaoyao, why are you hiding your martial arts? What are your intentions?" Seeing that Han Zhuoqi's fist was filled with internal energy and was about to hit her shoulder, Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, "What martial arts are you hiding? Why don't I know about it?" Before she finished her sentence, she sent a palm strike towards Han Zhuoqi's fist. Han Zhuoqi saw that Zhang Xiaohua's palm strike was light and had the demeanor of a master. She didn't dare to be negligent and gathered 70% of her internal energy into her fist. The disciples at the side were also secretly on tenterhooks, waiting for an earth-shattering sound. However, when the fist and palm collided, there wasn't any sound. Han Zhuoqi felt that her fist had hit cotton and didn't seem to have any strength. When Zhang Xiaohua's palm touched Han Zhuoqi's fist, her entire body floated up as if she was hit and flew forward. Borrowing strength? Han Zhuoqi was shocked. An ordinary borrowing strength naturally wouldn't cause Han Zhuoqi to lose her composure. However, Han Zhuoqi's fist contained 70% of her internal energy. Even if it hit a rock, the rock would shatter. Ren Xiaoyao actually caught her fist firmly and didn't suffer any injuries. He even used the momentum of her fist to display his qinggong. What kind of martial arts was this? At least, Han Zhuoqi knew that she was definitely not this person's match. Chapter 869. Not only was Han Zhuoqi shocked, even the surrounding distant Fire Palace disciples who were watching from afar were also shocked. Everyone's jaws almost dropped to the ground. No one would have thought that senior sister Han, who was second to none in distant Fire Palace, was actually unable to take down Zhang Xiaohua. Even Zhang Pinger's mouth was agape. She had seen Zhang Xiaohua's martial arts and knew that his martial arts were so powerful that he could even kill Lei Hu. But with her knowledge of martial arts, that was all. In her mind, other than the inner disciples of Lingering Fragrance Peak's Mo Shui Palace and the peak-guarding disciples of Ruijin Palace, the most powerful ones were distant Fire Palace Master and her own master. Then, it was her senior sister Han Zhuoqi. Han Zhuoqi was much older than Zhang Pinger and was Yin Yin's senior disciple. Most of the time, she taught on behalf of Master. Zhang Pinger was Yin Yin's youngest disciple in name, but most of her martial arts were taught by Han Zhuoqi. This was also the reason why Zhang Pinger first thought of Han Zhuoqi to capture Zhang Xiaohua, because in Zhang Pinger's impression, no matter how powerful Zhang Xiaohua was, he was definitely not Han Zhuoqi's match. Seeing Zhang Xiaohua escape so easily, Zhang Pinger was shocked and immediately ran up and grabbed Han Zhuoqi's arm. She cried, "Senior sister, what should we do? You can't stop him." Han Zhuoqi also calmed down and let out a long sigh. Her eyes were filled with deep meaning as she looked at Zhang Pinger and said, "Pinger, look, where did you find such a powerful person? Among the disciples of Pill Expanding Hall. Can there be someone with such high martial arts? Even old man Zishan only has this level of martial arts. How is that possible? Zhang Ping'er was even more incredulous. Ren Xiaoyao is just a disciple of pill-expanding hall. How can he be more powerful than their hall master? But she didn't have the heart to think about this and only shook Han Zhuoqi's arm. Senior sister, you quickly think of a way. He's about to reach the mountain path. What can we do? Han Zhuoqi shook her head. Even if we look for master now, it's too late. Han Zhuoqi raised her head and looked at the figure in the distance who was still steadily walking forward. She said thoughtfully, perhaps the outcome of this matter might not be as serious as you think. How is this possible? Zhang Ping'er was so worried about Zhang Xiaohua's safety that she almost cried. Trespassing on lingering fragrance peak is a serious crime. Furthermore, the disciples of Ruijin Palace stopped him. Even if they wanted his life, they wouldn't have to bear any responsibility. Will he still be alive? Then she thought of something and turned pale. She cried out, eldest senior sister, just you wait. I'll go look for master immediately. Even if master cripples him, he can't fall into Yu Zhuoqiyuan's hands. Of course, Zhang Ping'er was well aware of Yu Zhuoqiyuan's feelings for her. Shi Muzhuan had long noticed her feelings for Zhang Xiaohua, so Yu Zhuoqiyuan must have known about it long ago. If Zhang Xiaohua were to challenge the peak, wouldn't she be falling into the tiger's mouth? Not even his bones would be left behind. Silly girl. Han Zhuoqi grabbed Zhang Ping'er, who was about to run away, and scolded. Ren Xiaoyao has already rushed up the main mountain path. He is a disciple of our mythical flame hall. Even if he is guilty of a crime, our mythical flame hall can't shirk the responsibility. Even the hall master might be punished by Lord Sect Leader. If you go and call master over now, wouldn't you be pushing master into a fire pit? Zhang Ping'er was stunned. She didn't think so much and said with a bitter face. Then, eldest senior sister, what do you think we should do now? Han Zhuoqi rolled her eyes and turned her head. She said to two disciples who were not far away, you immediately inform the hall master and explain this matter to him. When one of the disciples heard this, he had a regretful look on his face. However, he still bowed and ran away. When that disciple was far away, Han Zhuoqi said to the other disciple, you go and inform the vice hall master. Tell him that your senior sister Zhang, and I will be following him. Yes, let me and eldest senior sister follow Ren Xiaoyao. Tell master not to be anxious. Zhang Ping'er couldn't help but interrupt. Han Zhuoqi glared at her and said to the disciple, okay, just say it like that. You can go. When that disciple was far away, Zhang Ping'er forced a smile and pulled Han Zhuoqi. Eldest senior sister, you are so nice. With you following me, I don't have to ask master for a token. Han Zhuoqi scolded with a smile. Am I doing this for you? Master might be able to hide behind us, but we still need someone. It's better for me to follow you than for you to not be able to reach lingering fragrance peak. After saying that, she looked around and saw that there were still many disciples who hadn't left. Most of them were the subordinates of the distant fire hall master. She couldn't force herself to give orders, so she ignored them and flew away to chase after them. Zhang Xiaohua borrowed Han Zhuoqi's inner energy and flew away. He knew that this martial art would definitely subdue Han Zhuoqi. He didn't even turn back and walked quickly to the main mountain path with his head held high. Zhang Xiaohua's emotions were surging and his blood was boiling. He wanted to use his sword to reach lingering fragrance peak. However, after thinking about it, his mind was clear and he wasn't as impulsive as before. He had to break through lingering fragrance peak. Otherwise, how could he see the dream and explain things clearly? As for this charge, it could only be done openly. Zhang Xiaohua also understood what the inner sect disciple had said. If he used the Imperial Wind technique or the Earth Escape technique, even if he reached the lingering fragrance peak and saw the dream, what would happen after that? Wasn't he just an alchemy disciple of the distant fire hall? He would never be compatible with the dream. Even Zhang Ping'er, in the eyes of others, was unworthy of her. Rather than that, he might as well do it openly, and let others see that Zhang Xiaohua had the qualifications to be with the inner disciples of Wuxia Palace. Of course, breaking through openly was also about technique. He definitely couldn't expose himself completely in front of the lingering fragrance cult. Zhang Xiaohua now wanted to use the reckless bull force and the 10,000 gene of strength in his arms to hide his other abilities. As for the other details, Zhang Xiaohua still didn't understand. Left and right, water and earth will be used to cover the earth. Soldiers will be used to block the enemy. Coincidentally, Zhang Xiaohua pretended that his qinggong wasn't good enough and walked out of the distant fire hall's mountain path. When he reached the main mountain path of Lingering Fragrance Peak, he met a few patrolling disciples. Wasn't the person in front Zhang Xiaohua the first time he entered the Lingering Fragrance Peak's array, Senior Wei? The white-robed Senior Wei saw a tall and thin disciple walking out of the distant fire hall's mountain path. Although the disciple was holding a so-called long sword, he wasn't surprised. He only glanced at the disciple and continued walking. The distant fire hall's disciples weren't limited to the distant fire hall. They could go to other places as well. Who would keep an eye on them? However, Senior Brother Wei stopped after taking 2 steps. He only felt that this disciple was somewhat familiar. After pondering for a while, he recalled the matter of a few days ago. After all, the matter of Zhang Xiaohua breaking through the array was rare in the Lingering Fragrance Peak. Senior Brother Wei had specially reported this matter to the peak. When he thought of this, Senior Wei stopped. When he turned back to look, he realized that Zhang Xiaohua didn't walk down the mountain as he had expected. She didn't walk past the main mountain path and head to the opposite side. He couldn't help but frown. When Senior Wei stopped, the other disciples who were following him stopped as well. All of them stood there and watched Zhang Xiaohua walk up the mountain. Of course, if Zhang Xiaohua only walked up the mountain and didn't go beyond the boundary of the distant fire hall, they had no right to interfere. However, Zhang Xiaohua simply turned around the back of their heads and walked along the main mountain path, making a turn. Senior Wei couldn't help but turn to look at the other disciples. They were obviously confused. They had seen disciples with personalities before, but they had never seen someone with such a personality. She actually treated them as though they didn't exist. That's right. In the past, when they were patrolling the mountain, no matter if it was the distant fire hall, the Greenwood Hall, or the Ruoshui Hall's disciples would nod their heads when they saw her. What senior brother? Junior brother? Greet them? Let's go. Let's go take a look. Senior Wei made a prompt decision and chased after her. The others also followed closely behind. They wanted to see what was going on. However, when Senior Wei and the others took a few steps, 2 female disciples rushed out from the distant fire hall's mountain path. They weren't familiar with Zhang Pinger, but Han Zhuqi was. Senior Wei cupped his hands and asked, "Senior Sister Han, what are you doing? Are you going up the mountain for business?" Han Zhuqi was a little hesitant. She didn't know what to say when she saw Zhang Xiaohua disappear around the corner. Zhang Pinger said anxiously, "Junior brother, you saw a disciple with a long sword. Did he go out from here?" "Senior sister, are you with that junior brother of yours? He's heading up the mountain." Senior Marshal Brother Wei's face relaxed as he pointed upwards. When Han Zhuqi heard this, she immediately waved her hand and said, "Junior Brother Wei, how are we related to that person? We were just bored and walked around. We only saw that disciple just now." Senior Brother Wei immediately felt that something was amiss. A bad feeling immediately arose in his heart. Before he could ask further, he heard a deep thunderous sound coming from the mountain path. Senior Wei felt that this sound was extremely familiar, but he couldn't recall where it came from. At this time, a young disciple behind him whispered, "Why is this sound similar to the sound that came from the protective array when the divine lightning fell from the sky?" Senior Wei's face instantly changed. The others beside him also blurted out, "Someone is trying to break into the protective array." After speaking, everyone ignored Han Zhuqi and Zhang Pinger as they executed their qinggong and headed up the mountain. At this moment, the disciples from the mythical Flame Hall, who were watching the show, also swarmed out from the mountain path. Senior Brother Wei and the others chased after them. Zhang Pinger also immediately pulled Han Zhuqi and followed closely behind. After everyone had passed through the bend, a slanted limestone mountain path appeared in front of them. A few hundred feet in front of them, a tall and skinny young man was holding a longsword in his hand. He was using all his strength to smash the longsword into an empty space on the mountain path. Every time he smashed the long sword, a splendor would burst forth from the empty space, and a buzzing sound would be emitted. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.